Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku was kidnapped by the Villain Alliance, and brainwashed him into a pawn for them to use against the heroes movie. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, the Wattpadian 101, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. I read a quote once that said, "I don't remember what it's like not to feel broken." I can relate to this on a deep level. As they strap me to the machine that alters my memories, I struggle to remember who I am, and why I'm here. I am Izuku Midoriya. I go to U.A High, and I will become a hero. I was captured? Yes, by the League of Villains. My mind flashed back to when these guys got a hold of me. I was walking home from school one day, distracted with my black eye that Kaken had given me today. He got in trouble, but my face still stung. I did not want to talk to my mom about Kaken hitting me again, but I decided it was inevitable. I was so engrossed with thinking up a good way to explain this to my mom, I didn't recognize all the people in black slowly gathering around me. I was ripped from my thoughts when an arm was suddenly draped over my shoulder, a hand wrapped loosely around my neck. I was so surprised that I didn't realize what was going on. I looked up, and a sudden dread washed over me. It was Shigaraki Tamura. Everything seemed to stop. Sweat ran down my face, and my breathing quickened rapidly. "Hello, Midoriya. It's so nice to see you again." Then, with his lips pressed against my ear, he whispered, "Don't think about calling for help. Make a move, and you're a dead man." His grip on my throat suddenly tightened, and I was struggling for breath. He took me down an alley where other villains were waiting, some girl, a guy with his skin stitched in place, and a man with the warping quirk. The girl tied me securely with a rope, and gagged me. Then, a blindfold was put over my eyes, and I was slung over someone's shoulder. I tried to struggle, but it was no use. Ever since, I'd been missing pieces of my memories. The only people from school who I can remember the names of are Kaken and Todoroki, but not what they look like. For everyone else in my class, it's the opposite. I can almost remember the girl with the brown hair's name. It starts with an O. I think no AU. Everything else aside, all I know about the villain's plan is to force me to kill with the quirk my favorite hero, All Might, gave me. Although, the problem is I still don't have any control over it. It breaks my bones, which the villains ignore. They cause me pain anyway. Who cares if I have to suffer more? They inject me with needles then ask me questions. I've learned to lie. What is your name? Izuku. Where did you go to high school? Silence. Who is your favorite hero? Silence. What is your mother's name? Silence. And so the useless questions go on. If I don't answer, they'll assume that they've made progress. I don't know what I'm fighting for exactly, but I'm not letting go of it. I didn't like these people. They forced me to steal and practice killing people, hurting me. I couldn't stand it. They left me alone for a little bit, in a straitjacket and my boxers. The first time they had injected me, I lashed out and tried to get free of them, then knocked over a vial of the serum that they were putting inside of me. Since then, they restrained me while they did their experiments. Soon enough, I knew I would forget everything, though I didn't know what that meant. I hardly remembered who I was. Did I have friends? A family? What was my normal life like before these guys took me? Eventually, they ran so many tests on me that I forgot everything besides my name. I had no idea what gender I was, how old I was, where I was, or who the people were who made me like this. They told me the basics about my life, but no details. The empty space in my mind bothered me, but I tried not to think about it. Instead, I focused on learning what these people were trying to teach me. I had no morals, and no bad feelings about what was to come. I could ignore the pain of my power with a smile on my face. Even the broken bones didn't seem to hurt anymore. The man with the stitches, who I only knew as Dabi, smacked me across the face. "You've gotta focus, Midoriya. You hardly even hit the target this time." I mumbled an apology, causing him to hit me again. "No talking," I whimpered on the inside, fixing my gaze on the floor. "Now try again and use your power, got it?" I nodded, and took the knives in my hands. I drew my arms back, and using my quirk, threw the knife into the middle of the human-shaped target. There was a crunch, as my already broken bones fractured a little more. They used to push me harder, but after learning that there was a possibility of permanent paralysis in my arms, they stopped. Now, they kidnapped a man with a healing quirk to fix me up after every lesson. The only one that pushed me to my limit, and possible paralysis, was Dabi, who relentlessly pushed me until I either did it right or collapsed from pain. After a few more throws, he let me go. I went straight to my room, which was nice but small. I wasn't sure what exactly was supposed to be in the room, but I had a pile of blankets and a pillow. I didn't have any extra clothes, though the girl, who I learned was named Toga, usually made sure that I had new ones when I either grew out of them or ripped them. There wasn't much for me to do besides training. I usually spend my free time trying to remember my past, though it seemed impossible that I would ever remember my friends or family, if I even had any. It was hard to believe that I wasn't just grown from an experiment, without a past at all. I laid down on my blankets and closed my eyes. Gotta get my broken bones taken care of, I thought, already drifting off. So, this story is originally from Wattpad, but I decided to share it here, as well. Hope you enjoy it, and don't get too triggered over the spelling mistakes. Smack, the sound was there, but the pain wasn't. I hardly could feel their abuse anymore. Shigaraki's hits almost seemed like comfort compared to the broken bones and loneliness I felt. At least when I was hit, they paid me some attention. If you don't get treated, you'll be no use to us, Midoriya. Your arms will become paralyzed, and your quirk will be useless. Don't you get it? Without us, you wouldn't know how to properly use that power. He hit me again. Don't you see? I'm treating you as if you were my own son. I'm giving you my knowledge and how to survive. But your payment to me is not you paralyzing yourself and making your arms useless. I didn't say a thing. I was taught not to. I let my beating go on, and then the captured doctor took care of me. I could tell he was always terrified when he was healing me. He never told me directly how my condition was. Instead, he turned to Shigaraki and quietly explained what the damage was and how it would affect me in the future. He can't keep breaking his bones, he said quickly and quietly. The multiple fractures are destroying his structure. He lifted an arm and showed Shigaraki the scars and bends in my arms. See? If this keeps happening, I won't be able to fix it. You need to take it easy on him. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room changed. Before the doctor could apologize for speaking out of turn, Shigaraki grabbed him by the front of the shirt, which started to turn to dust in his hands. Are you telling me what to do? I can always find a new doctor for my apprentice here. You're replaceable, you know. I didn't mean to, sir. The doctor was shaking in fear. It almost made me laugh. Not laughter full of humor, but an emotionless, hollow one that fills silence and puts emphasis on the irony of the situation. I probably used to whimper like that. I honestly didn't even know anymore. Now, he hardly even scared me. Shigaraki Tamura, my mentor, my worst nightmare, my only friend. Shigaraki dropped the doctor and turned to me. Come along, Midoriya. I've got something fun planned for you. You've got a mission. My ears perked up at that, if I'm going to be honest. Nothing filled the void of loneliness inside me. Most days, I was either training or alone in my room. Sometimes, Shigaraki would eat with me, and Toga would fret over me, but I wasn't sure either of them really cared. They probably just did it because they lost a bet, or they thought I would leave if I felt neglected. I could easily sneak out of the hideout if I wanted to. My doors were left unlocked, and I was never supervised. However, there was no point in leaving. I had no one, no friends or family. There was nowhere for me to go, and certainly no point to me wandering about alone on the streets. Shigaraki warned me that I was wanted, and to avoid heroes at all costs, since they would lock me up and kill me in horrible ways. The way of justice is praised while ours is despised, although they're no different. He hates heroes, and the one he hates the most is All Might. I learned to hate him too. Shigaraki brought me to the bar where the others I knew were. I only really knew Toga, Dalby, and Black Mist. Along with Shigaraki, these four trained me the most, and have caused me the most pain. They turned me into what I am now. They explained to me that they had a mission for me. I felt a bit of nervousness rising up inside me, though I didn't know why. Because I hadn't been outside in ages? Because I actually had something to do besides train? No, it was because I finally had a chance to prove myself, to use my power like I was taught. I got a new outfit, though it wasn't really my style, and I couldn't see how it would help me in any way, but it made sense when I learned Toga had picked it out. It was a suit, not useful for fighting or anything, but she said I would look good in it, and that was all that mattered. My mission was to find 3 hero eggs or students training to be heroes. I had to kill 2, and capture the other. I was given pictures of each of them. 2 of them looked a little familiar to me, but the third, the one I had to capture, definitely sparked memories of my life before all this happened. One of the 2 I was told to kill had black hair and glasses. He looked serious and scary. The other one had a cold expression on his face, but the most distinctive feature was his two-toned hair. One side was white, and the other was red. His eyes were also 2 different colors, one brown, and the other blue. Another feature was the burn over his left eye. I could definitely find. Then, there was the one I was ordered to capture. In the back of my mind, something, a memory, was being tugged at. I felt hatred, and remembered explosions, but suddenly, white-hot pain erupted in my head. I lost the memory, so instead I studied what the boy looked like. His hair was a sandy blonde, and his eyes were small, and even colder than the boy with two-toned hair. He looked like he was ready to murder anyone who got in his way. How will I capture him? I asked quietly. For that, Dabi punched me in the gut. I wasn't supposed to talk. We'll be waiting on 3rd Avenue. All you have to do is lead him there. Shigaraki explained, as if it was obvious. And you know what happens if you fail, right? I swallowed, and nodded, remembering all the tests they did on me. I couldn't even remember what those tests were for. Whatever it was, it still haunted me. I wouldn't fail. I couldn't. It wasn't said out loud, but I knew my worth to Shigaraki, and the rest of the bunch rested on this mission. If I wasn't ready, they'd kill me in a heartbeat, or break my limbs so much that they won't work anymore, and force me to drag myself around, treated as a neglected pet. It would be a fate worse than death. I changed into my suit, and was given multiple knives and guns. My costume hid my weapons surprisingly well. No one would have guessed that I was an assassin tonight. I took the pictures of my victims with me, although their faces were ingrained into my mind. They were my victims, and I would carry out this mission. My life depended on it. I was given no information, but some instinct inside of me told me to go to U.A, although the kids were supposed to be long gone from school at this time of the night. On the campus, I found a building called Heights Alliance with 1A on it. I assumed that it meant Class 1A, and somehow, I knew that was where I would find my victims. This mission was also a test, to see if I could handle the life that the 4 of them set me up for. I had no idea where the 3 of them would be, but I had to find out, and before anything happened, I was surprised that I didn't run into any security. I was sure that U.A was well guarded. I shrugged it off, and went to work figuring out which side of the building was for the girls, and which one was for the boys. I looked in the wind on the ground floor, seeing that it was just a common area. Very carefully, I picked the lock on the back door, thinking it would be better to enter from the back. There was less of a chance for alarms to go off in the back. I was dumb, and alarms went off anyway. I hid, as the kids arose, and their panicked whispers told me they were gathering in the commons area. I knew they were powerful, and their quirks could easily kill me, but I had to fulfill my mission. With shaking hands, I took a gun out from under my suit vest, and aimed slowly, looking around the ajar door at the kids. They all looked so familiar. One of the kids I was supposed to kill held up his hands. Calm down, everyone. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. His voice, why did it seem so familiar? Why did I feel like what I was doing was wrong all of a sudden? I pointed my gun at the boy with black hair and glasses. Before I shot, I scouted out the boy with the two-toned hair. I would have to take a quick aim to hit him before being discovered. Then, there was the boy I had to capture. He was still half asleep, and a little bit away from the group. How would I get him out? I had a tracking device on me. It's been there ever since I could remember. It doubled as a panic button in case I got into trouble. I decided to grab the kid in the confusion, hit the panic button, then Shigaraki, and the others would come and get me. I would certainly get a beating for messing up this mission so badly, but at least I'll still be alive if I bring the kid with me. I aimed the gun at the boy with the glasses, right between the eyes. Instant death. I steadied my shaking hand and fired. The gun was so loud, and time seemed to slow. Suddenly, a name flashed across my mind. Ida. Somehow, I knew the boy. The one I had just shot. With a gasp, I looked up, expecting to see blood and brains splashed on the wall, but there was nothing. Nothing, but a bullet embedded there. The students went silent. Then, as one, they all turned and looked at me. I swore under my breath, and tried to stand up and run, but I wasn't fast enough. The boy Ida used his quirk, some kind of engine in his legs, and grabbed me by the shirt. Who the he stopped, and his face went pale. Midoriya? A jolt went through me. How did he know my name? I struggled to get free of his grip. He seemed pretty shocked, so I slipped right through his fingers and started to run. Why was he so familiar? Why did I want to cry and say sorry for almost killing him? Why didn't I kill him? I was sure that I was aiming at him. I couldn't have messed up that badly. I wasn't an amateur. Suddenly, something long and slimy wrapped around my middle. I yelped quietly out of surprise as the thing lifted me into the air. Out of panic, I grabbed a knife and slashed the thing. It released me, but I heard a yelp of pain. I risked a glance behind me. A girl who looked like a frog was holding her tongue where I had slashed it. I ran faster, pressing the panic button on my tracker. I was jerked to a stop. I looked down and saw my legs encased in ice. My eyes widened, and I tried to get free. Any minute, black mist, and Shigaraki would show up and get me out of here. I wasn't ready for this. I couldn't kill these kids, they're hero eggs. I mustered up my strength and used my quirk to free myself from the ice. I lost my shoes and broke my legs, but I tried to limp away as fast as I could. I wasn't used to using my legs to fight, so the pain was way more severe when I broke my legs than when I broke my arms. My world was in pain, and I couldn't get away fast enough. They were going to catch me and kill me. Just when I was about to collapse, a warp gate opened up. I ran for the life of me inside, crashing onto the bar floor. I was breathing heavily, and just realized that I wasn't out of danger yet. I looked up slowly, my eyes meeting Shigaraki. I felt like crying at his icy gaze. Please no, I thought. Haven't I suffered enough? Midoriya, Shigaraki scolded me quietly. You've failed. I knew I was going to get it. I forgot all of my training in my panic, not to mention my mission. I couldn't even kill that Ida kid. I panicked. I knew that Shigaraki was going to hurt me. He grabbed me tightly by the arm and dragged me to the room where he had done experiments on me. He ordered me to lift my shirt and face the wall. I did. I couldn't see what he was planning, but I knew it was going to hurt. Sure enough, I felt a sharp pain on my back and tried to suppress my cries of pain. I knew this punishment well enough, since it was the most severe he could think of. He was using a scalpel to slowly peel the skin off my back. I shook from pain. I couldn't stand due to my legs being broken, but even if I had started by standing, the pain would have made me collapse anyway. Sadly, this wasn't the worst part. He left me to bleed out for a little hit, then came with a pitcher of spiked lemonade. He roughly wiped away the blood, then poured the drink down my back. I couldn't hold my pain in. Instead, I let out a piercing scream of pure agony. He left me there for a while. I knew my back would never fully heal. The scars would always be there, no matter how many times I was healed by the captured doctor. I sobbed myself into a fitful sleep, trying to forget the pain. Sooner than I expected, Shigaraki came back. He stroked back my hair in a fatherly way. This wouldn't have happened if you had done it right the first time, Izuku. A shiver ran down my spine. Whenever he used my first name, he was about to hurt me. Sure enough, his light stroking stopped. He tangled his fingers in my hair and tugged on it as hard as he could. I yelped as he dragged me by my hair to the operation table I hated so much. I was in too much pain to fight back. Before he started, he wrapped my torso with gauze so I wouldn't die of blood loss. Then he forced me to sit up. Now, Izuku, answer me a few questions, okay? I wanted to refuse, but he didn't give me the chance. He had a syringe in his hand that would wipe my memory. I swallowed hard. Did you remember anything, Izuku? My bottom lip trembled before I could stop it. That's how Shigaraki figured out I was lying to him. With a strangled voice, I answered the question. Yes. What was it? I didn't look him in the eye. I remembered Ida, and he knew why. Anything else? The boy you asked me to capture made me angry. I hate him. Is that it? I swallowed and nodded. Shigaraki smiled. Don't worry, Izuku. You'll forget all this, and things will go back to normal. Doesn't that sound nice? I didn't respond. I couldn't stop making him angry. I was shaking as the needle got closer. Please don't make me forget again. I didn't want to. I felt tears running down my cheeks. I wanted to remember something. Why did he have to make me forget? As I was expecting the needle to plunge into my neck, the alarms started to go off. Shigaraki growled in annoyance and stood up. Don't you move from that spot, or I'll whip you. With that threat hanging above me, he threw down the syringe and stormed upstairs. I waited for 10 minutes in pure silence, trying to guess what had set off the alarms. I was too scared to move, even though the position I was in made my back hurt. I felt like crying, but I was too dehydrated to make any tears come. The thought of water brought thoughts of food, which reminded me it had been a few days since my last meal, and how much weight I had lost. Not that I had much to lose in the first place. I was startled from my thoughts when the basement door slammed open. I stayed perfectly still, thinking it was Shigaraki coming to plunge a needle into my neck. I began to shake with fear. I closed my eyes, and tried not to think of the pain of losing my memories, of having an empty void in my head where my thoughts should be. I only realized that it wasn't Shigaraki when I heard how heavy the footsteps were. My eyes popped open and right in front of me was All Might, the hero who Shigaraki said would kill me. He had a smile on his face, and I was petrified. I stared at the enemy of my mentor with eyes as wide as saucers. Midoriya, he said quietly, starting to walk over to me. I panicked and grabbed the first weapon I saw, the syringe. All Might seemed to be taken back by this act. It's me, kid. Stay away from me, All Might. I squeaked. He held up his hands in a defensive gesture, like he expected me to just put down my weapon and go with him willingly. Young Midoriya's voice sounded sad for some reason. What did they do to you? First you sneak into U.A, then you try and kill young Ida. Shut up, I yelled. I couldn't even stand due to my broken legs. How do you know me? Just put the syringe down, Izuku, then I'll explain everything. When he said my first name, something sparked inside of me. He was here to hurt me. That's what always happened when Shigaraki said my name. Don't take another step. These villains have messed with your mind, kid. Do you even know who you are? Stop confusing me, I said. Shigaraki, he brainwashed you, Midoriya. You've forgotten your friends and U.A. Everyone thought you were dead, including myself. But now, I'm here to free you. No! You want to kill me? That's what Shigaraki said you'd do to me if I got caught, he said. He was tricking you, my boy. Don't you remember? I gave you your quirk. I helped you get into U.A. You admired me, as a kid, and you still do. I opened my mouth to argue, but I didn't even know if I believed my life was a lie anymore. The syringe fell from my shaking hands, and tears that didn't come before started to roll down my face. All Might. A sharp pain shot through my brain. All Might, the hero I'd admired, came to save me. I'm not. I just totally broke down. Before I realized what was happening, I was wrapped in All Might's arms, bawling my eyes out. I apologized over and over again, crying until I was just heaving dry sobs from my sore throat. My back was on fire, and my legs felt like they would never work again. All Might picked me up in his arms and took me upstairs. Other heroes were there, but I couldn't seem to remember their names. I buried my face in All Might's chest, finally feeling safe after being in fear for so long. Shigaraki, he'd really hurt and confused me. I would never be unable to forget how to kill, or that I was surprisingly good at it, at least in practice. Apparently I didn't have the guts, since I couldn't kill Ida. Ida, and all my classmates were slowly coming back to me. Uraraka, Todoroki, Ajui, Kaken. I couldn't believe I would forget him. I'd hated him for so long. Midoriya, the police want to ask you some questions. I looked up at All Might. Can it wait? I want U.A.'s nurse, what's her name, to fix me up first. And I want to tell my mom that I'm okay. Midoriya, everyone thought you were dead. My eyes widened at this news. Huh, your mom was devastated, and refused to see anyone from the media or U.A. This may come as quite a shock for her. I think I'll calmly explain the situation to her while Recovery Girl is fixing you up. Okay. I smiled at the thought of seeing my mom again. At the mention of the Recovery Girl, I suddenly remembered something. All Might. There was a doctor that the villains captured to fix me up when I broke my bones. Did you find him? All Might nodded. Don't worry, young Midoriya. He's in good hands. I'm glad, I said. I winced, as All Might readjusted me in his arms so he could place me in the back of the police car we were taking to U.A. What happened to your back? Oh, it was nothing. I'm fine. My voice broke. Just fine. I felt the tears building up behind my eyes. I wasn't going to let them fall. I couldn't. I had to stop being a crybaby. Midoriya, it's okay to cry, you know. Holding everything in like this can't be healthy. He climbed into the seat next to me so I wouldn't be alone in the back. My bottom lip started to tremble. All Might, he hurt me a lot. I didn't want to kill Ida, he told me to, and I did it so he wouldn't hit me. I started to sob again. I didn't want to kill Ida and Todoroki. I wiped away the tears, but they just kept coming. He wanted me to kidnap Kaken too, but I couldn't do it, so he punished me. All Might let me cry for a little bit. We were already halfway there when I finally got control of my emotions. Sorry about that. Everything's still a little fuzzy. You should rest, All Might said. It will get your mind off the pain you're in right now. Pain? I gave a humorless laugh. This is nothing. I was in bed for 4 days after that. I was kept at U.A. where security was the best. Mom came and checked on me every day. When she first came, she had cried for most of the time and wouldn't let me out of the hug I was locked in for at least 10 minutes. I probably would have done the same if I thought she was dead for 6 or so months. My classmates came in, though it was hard to talk to them after firing a gun at Ida. He said he knew that I wasn't myself and forgave me, but I couldn't help still feeling guilty. Recovery Girl helped me with my back, healing it in no time. My legs would take some time, however. Another problem was the precarious state my arms were in. If I used my power a few more times and ended up breaking my arms, I'd be done for. I didn't know how I would live with never using one for all ever again, but the bigger struggle was living with arms that would never move again. The ugly scarring on my arms was my constant reminder of the danger I was to myself. All Might would visit me a lot. It was usually after he had drained his hero form either by teaching or fighting villains in the morning. On my last day in the hospital, I asked him something that had been constantly on my mind. Do you think I should give up trying to be a hero? All Might was silent for a while, looking everywhere besides me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Midoriya. I gave you one for all so you could live out your dreams and become a hero. I knew the consequences, but I gave you my power nonetheless. I'm sorry, my boy, but with your current condition I can see no way that you could survive hero work. I was silent for a moment. The words hurt. I'd been putting together fragments of my memory since All Might had saved me, and the strongest emotion I felt was the want, the need, for me to be a hero. It was my driving force. Without it, I was just another bystander. I gripped the blankets so tight that my knuckles turned white. Don't cry, you knew this is the only way. Tears slipped silently down my cheek, closely followed by another, then another, and before I knew it, I was a sobbing mess. Everything I worked for, All Might, what you trained me for. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for so much trouble. All Might, in his weaker form, wrapped his arms around me, almost like a father. I'm sorry we couldn't save you earlier, Izuku, he said quietly. This is all my fault. I'm so sorry, my boy. Mom picked me up later in the day. I could walk again, and my back gave me no pain. The car ride was quiet, but I knew I'd have to tell her sooner or later. Mom, yes, sweetie? Mom answered right away. I swallowed hard. I think that it would be best if I. A car horn suddenly blared, as my mom swerved to stop from going into the opposite lane. I jumped. Mom, are you alright? Sorry, Izuku. You know I've got a one-track mind. Can hardly talk and walk at the same time. Could you tell me later? That way everyone will be safer. She was smiling, but I noticed that she was hiding something. She looked older. Had my disappearance and reappearance been too much for her to handle? I hoped she hadn't lost too much sleep over me. Right when she put the car in park, she said, "Okay, I'm listening, okay." I got out of the car and followed her inside, starting to tell her my bad news. As I was saying, since my arms are in pretty bad shape, All Might told me that it was a good idea, so I think that I'll give it up. Give up, Izuku? Mom, I think that I should quit going to the USA and forget my dream of becoming a hero. She was silent for a moment. Oh well, if that's what you want. I mean, being a hero has been your dream since. I know. I felt the tears wanting to fall again. But I'm a danger to myself. I don't want to lose my arms. Do you think that it would be a good idea for me to just live a normal life? My mom wrapped her arms around me. Izuku, I think that would be for the best. It felt like my whole life crashed onto me. I buried my head in my mom's shoulder and let out everything I'd been holding in since I had confirmed my suspicions, but it still hurt that everything I'd worked for was being destroyed before my eyes. Even though I knew I could no longer be a hero, I knew that I wouldn't give up going to U.A. After confirming it with the faculty, I was admitted into the general education program at U.A. The idea of this program was to let kids with either weaker or seemingly useless quirks get into the highest ranked school in Japan. My mom forced me to stay home and heal before she sent me back to school. Once in my life, I didn't mind her babying me. I was confined to my room for 3 days, despite me being fine since the trip to the hospital had patched me up, and my mom almost refused to let me be alone. I didn't mind. I was glad she was there. Finally, it was the morning I would go back to school. I kissed my mom goodbye, something I hadn't done in years, and waved to her goodbye before I walked to the station. To my surprise, Ida and Uraraka were both waiting for me at the end of my street. Hey, Deku! Uraraka waved at me with a smile, and was just as cute as ever. Wait, was she blushing? I shrugged it off. It must have just been hot. I was feeling a little warm myself. Ida looked glad to see me, but also wary. Are you sure you should still be attending U.A? I blinked, huh? Why not? Isn't U.A supposed to be the safest facility in the world? It is, but you somehow broke in, you know, that night. Oh, now that I thought about it. No alarms or anything had gone off when I snuck in, and I tried to shake my head. No use thinking about the past. I'll ask All Might about it during class. Oh yeah, I was getting all new teachers too. Maybe going back to U.A wasn't the best idea. Well, I'll give it a try for today. If I can't handle it, I'll talk to All Might about it. We went to the station together, not mentioning anything about me being evil, or how I could easily be kidnapped again. The Alliance did get away, after all. Or at least Shigaraki, Toga, Mist, and Dabi, although they were really the only ones who mattered. Deku? Are you there? Huh. I realized I had been staring off into space. Yeah? Fine. Are you sure you should be going to school? Ida asked. You still seem a little unstable. I laughed it off, saying I would be just fine. We got off at our stop and walked up to U.A. New classes, new peers, and new teachers. This was not something I was exactly looking forward to, but considering I had broken in and tried to kill 2 of their students, I was grateful for the opportunity. We'll ride back home with you too, okay, Deku? Uraraka said. I nodded with a smile. At least I still had friends. Am I just supposed to walk in there like it's completely normal? They all saw me at the sports festival and knew I was in the hero program. I thought worriedly, as I stood outside my new classroom, Class 1C. I bit my nails and tried to get the courage to walk in, when someone grabbed me by the shoulder. I jumped, but tried to calm my nerves when I saw who it was. Hitoshi-kun, I said. What are you doing here? Hello, Midori-kun. Hitoshi greeted me. This is my classroom. I haven't seen you around. Word around school is you got captured by villains and tried to kill your classmates from 1A. I met Hitoshi during the sports festival. He had a brainwashing quick that only worked if you answered his question. Oh well, so you get kicked out of the Department of Heroes for that, or what? No, I was in danger of permanent paralysis to my arms if I kept using my quirk, so they sent me here. Hitoshi simply shrugged. What are you waiting out here for? Come on. I followed him in the classroom, and cringed slightly when all eyes fell on me. I heard whispers, but Hitoshi pointed to an empty desk. Sit there. I took my seat, and tried to ignore everyone around me. This was going to be harder than I thought. General education seemed a lot more interesting than the Department of Heroes. Our teacher was still a pro, ectoplasm, but his lessons were nothing like All Might and Mr. Aizawa's. We learned almost nothing about heroes, which was understandable, but it made me miss 1A even more. Everyone in this class were strangers to me, and I didn't feel like I could relate to them since I had the potential to be a pro hero. But here I was, sitting in a completely ordinary classroom learning about life science and how plants grow. I felt the eyes of my peers on me, judging my every move. I wasn't used to drawing attention from people, so this freaked me out a little. After the first period was over, a few kids came up and asked me what I was doing in Class 1C. I tried to explain everything the best I could without mentioning how I had been kidnapped, but they didn't look completely convinced. At lunch I found Ida and Uraraka and sat with them. They asked me how my new classes were going, and I lied, saying it was going great. I didn't want them to worry about me. The rest of the day went by in a blur, and I found myself waiting outside for my friends. Hey, Deku. I looked up, and was filled with dread. It was Kaken, and he looked annoyed. He had stopped picking on me so much after the sports festival, but after I had been gone for so long did he want to bully me again. I heard you got booted to General Ed. I scratched the back of my head. Well, All Might said it would be dangerous. I know all about your sob story, so cut the crap. I know you broke in and went on a murderous rage. Huh, but I didn't. Shut up. He pushed his hands further into his pockets. I don't care what those losers threatened you with. I just wanted to make it clear that I surpassed your wimpy quirk, and I'm going to be better than you and everyone else. I didn't want to win this way, but I guess I'll just have to accept it. See you around, Deku? He started to walk away, but I stopped him. Kaken! I swallowed my nervousness. We were rivals. He had to listen to me. Who says this is over? I'm not going down that easily. You're just gonna have to wait. You'll see. I'll surpass you. I swear I saw Kaken smirk as he turned away. You're a stubborn dumbass. That was all he said before walking away. Deku! Called a voice. It was Uraraka. What was that about? Oh, it was nothing, I said. Sorry to keep you waiting, Uraraka said. Hey, did I ever give you my phone number? I was just thinking, if we ever have a super late class, wouldn't want to keep you waiting all day for us. Here. She took my phone and added her number to my contacts. Thanks, I said. I couldn't believe I actually got a girl's phone number, and Uraraka, which made it even better. Ida had given me his a while ago, so I was covered there. We walked to the station just like normal, ignoring the rift that was slowly coming between us. I had never really had friends before coming to the U.A, but after everything that had happened, and being assigned to a different classroom, I knew things wouldn't be exactly as I wanted them to be. No hanging out, no staying in the dorms over weekdays, just hanging out at lunch, and on weekends. This was definitely going to test our friendship. I heard you're in the same class as Hitoshi-kun. At least you're not in a class of complete strangers, Uraraka said with a smile. I tried to smile back. Yeah, I guess. I'm sure you'll make a ton of friends, Deku. Uraraka was beaming now. Although I'm still not sure about how safe it is for you to go home every day. If the villains got you before, I'm sure that they know where you live. You should come to the dorms with the rest of us. But I'm in Class 1C now, I said. Are you sure it would be alright? I had been taken by the villains before the dorms were made. In fact, my capture was the reason for the building of the dorms. U.A had top-notch security, and they found it safer to keep an eye on all of Class 1A since we had been the main reason U.A had been getting a lot of hate. Villains had an eye for us, and many parents were scared that U.A was putting their kids in danger. I thought it was a good move, even if I had been oblivious to it. We had gotten to the station. I felt a lump form in my throat. Well, I'll see you guys around. We'll hang out soon, Deku Uraraka said. Are you free Sunday? We could hang out at the mall or something. I shrugged. I think I'm free. See ya. I turned and got on my train. I felt tears building up behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This went on for weeks, and I wasn't sure if I could keep the mask of contention on any longer. All my former classmates were getting closer and closer to becoming heroes, but with every step I tried to take towards them, I was hit by a rushing wave and thrown dozens of meters away from them. I was slowly drowning in the grave I dug myself, and with every fiber of my being, I knew that I had to be a hero, no matter the cost. I was making my way to lunch when someone grabbed me by the shoulder, causing me to jump. Calm down, it's me. All Might. I plastered a fake smile on my face. It's been a while. I have something I want to talk to you about. Follow me. Oh, okay. I followed All Might to the teacher's lounge where he turned to his true form, and relaxed on the couch. I sat on a chair across from him. What did you want to talk about? Your grades are plummeting. I inhaled sharply. So he knew. I chuckled a little. It's nothing. I smile again. It's just because I'm not in the swing of things yet. That's not it. All Might interrupted me. Midoriya, are you sure you want to keep attending U.A? My smile faltered slightly. Of course. I mean, I'm getting a good education. It's not too expensive, but you came here to be a hero. Not because it was the school you wanted. You wanted to go here for the sole purpose of being a hero. Now, that option was taken away. I swallowed. It wasn't far off. No, that was right on point. But Izuku. Are you sure that you're happy? My faint smile vanished. Happy? Tears started to leak. I'm such a crybaby. I wiped them away, but they were replaced with fresh water. Before I knew it, I was a sobbing mess. I just want to be a hero like you. Thin arms wrapped around me, and I returned the embrace without thinking. I was a sobbing mess. My world had been torn from under me, all my hopes and dreams along with any friendships I had made during my short time at U.A. And here was All Might, my hero. He didn't give me those comforting words, you can be a hero. Instead, he just embraced me in a way you would hold a person who realized that their best friend died. He didn't offer me any words of hope, and I knew that he wouldn't. What I wanted and longed for was impossible at this point. We stayed that way until my crying had stopped. At that time, lunch was basically over. All Might poured me some tea to calm me down, and offered me his lunch. I noticed you haven't been eating lately. I know that this is hard for you, but you can't just give up. There are a million different jobs out there which I know you'd excel at. You're smart and hardworking, which makes for a coworker that everyone wants. There's a job fair coming up that I think would be helpful for you to attend. The room went silent, and I tried to stifle the disappointment on my face. I never thought that I wouldn't end up a hero. It had seemed impossible without a quirk, but it was something I never gave up on. To think of a new career path after such a long time. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, kid. It's a painful time for both of us. Are you going to find a new successor? It was a very blunt question, but I knew this would change everything. If All Might took a new successor, I wouldn't be able to spend time with him. He would be another person that I would have to forget about. Just like everyone else from my past. The room went silent once more. All Might didn't look at me. After a few minutes, a soft voice answered. Yes. Or a better answer I have. The word stung, but I tried not to let it show. Everyone thought you were dead, All Might continued. Including me. Your mother was the only one who wouldn't give up on you. At least, that's what she said. She started to doubt it just like the rest of us a few weeks before we rescued you. My successor is a third-year student named Mirio. I see. I stood up slowly. I guess that you have a new successor. I won't be hanging around you much anymore. All Might didn't say anything. Without the ability to safely use my quirk, I was just another one of his students. No, I was less than that. All Might didn't teach any other classes besides the one for the hero course students. I guess I'll see you around then, All Might. I muttered the words, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. All Might said nothing. The bell hadn't rung, and I hadn't touched the food All Might had offered me, but I wasn't too concerned. I walked to my classroom, and took my seat. The tears waited until I was alone to start flowing. No matter how much I wished I could go back to the past, I couldn't. Why had All Might given me false hope? If he hadn't, I would have been happy and clueless, as a quirkless loser. But now, I was a loser with a useless quirk with the insane dream of being a hero. I looked down at my books. The corner of my notebook was peeking out. I picked it up, and opened it to a random page. It was the page on Kaken. I glared at the notes. They were all useless. Every single page which I had poured my heart and soul into. I glared at the pages with an intensity that could burn a hole through it. Without a second though, I slammed the notebook shut, and chucked it across the classroom. I hate you! I have no idea who I was yelling at, but it made me feel better to get it out of my system. Well, a voice came from the doorway. I jumped at it. Looks like someone's having a temper tantrum. Hitoshi was leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. What? The great Izuku Midoriya has finally realized what being in general studies is really about. It's not a very popular place to be, as you can imagine, but once you get to know the kids here, we tend to stick together. It's not that. Sorry you had to see me like that, though. I'm just a little stressed at the moment. I'll be fine in a little bit. You never really explained why you're not in the hero course. When we fought in the sports festival, you had an amazing quirk. I wasn't sure if I could tell him about One for All, so I didn't. I can't use it anymore. It breaks my bones, and I'm in danger of permanent paralysis in my arms if I keep using it. It was the truth, just not all of it. I've never heard of a quirk that could ruin a person's body like that. Did it just manifest too quickly? I didn't want to answer him since his quirk was brainwashing, which he could use to force me to tell the truth. Thankfully, the bell rang, and I was saved. I just shrugged, and went to pick up my notebook. It was a short, yet lonely walk home alone from the station. Uraraka had texted me that their classes would run long today, so I should just go home without them. I was all alone with my thoughts. I was holding my notebook in my hands, ready to throw it out into the nearest trash pile on the sidewalk, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It had become a part of me that was inseparable. It was stupid. I'm home, I announced half-heartedly, as I entered me and my mom's apartment. My mom came around the corner with a wide smile. Did you have a good day at school, sweetie? I smiled, and lied saying that it was just another day. I slipped off my shoes, and gave my mom a hug. She really thought I was okay. Half of me wanted her to see through all the lies I told, and tell me everything would be fine. Lying to my mom made me feel sick. We ate supper while she told me how her day went. She asked about mine, and I said that it went great. She made sure that I was doing okay, mentally that is. Ever since my imprisonment, Mom had been watching my every movement, just in case I would break down from the memories and trauma I went through. That usually happened at 3 o'clock in the morning after a nightmare. The first few nights, I had women her up with my screaming, so I trained myself to stop it. I didn't want to bother her more than I already did. I knew that it was unfair to lie to her, but I didn't want to see her so worried about me anymore. That night, like any other night, I woke up in a cold sweat, breathing heavily, almost as if my throat was being blocked. I sobbed silently into my blankets, and slowly began to calm myself down. The nightmares, which I thought would get better with time, were getting worse, and more vivid. I could almost feel my bones shattering, and the alcohol being poured onto my torn and bloodied skin. After half an hour, I finally calmed myself down. I just want all of this to go away. I wanted to be a hero. I didn't want to paralyze my arms. My arms would never be the same again. Even though the doctor had an amazing quirk, the constant breaking of my bones have left them scarred and crooked. I knew people looked weird when they thought I wasn't paying attention. They whispered how I must be suicidal behind my back when they think I can't hear them. I just wanted to be a hero. Why was I given such false hope from All Might? If it wasn't for All Might, I smacked myself. None of this was All Might's fault. This was mine. If I had been stronger, if I had gotten a hold of my power sooner, if I had what it took to be a real hero, I wouldn't have been captured. It was so simple. I wasn't meant to be a hero. What a stupid lie I was living. It was all just a fantasy from the beginning. There was no way a little, quirkless loser could ever be a hero like All Might. Kaken was right. Everyone was right. I, Midoriya Izuku, would never ever be a hero. I stared at the test that was just handed back to me. I couldn't believe the grade that I was given, and the note "See me after class" with 2 lines under it. My world was falling out from under me. I couldn't do this anymore. Why was so much expected from me? Why was the world making sure everything I did ended up a failure? I went up to ectoplasm after class. Is everything okay, Midoriya? In the hero course, you were in the top 10 of your class, but now you're right at the bottom. Is something bothering you? I guess I'm still recovering. Don't worry, I'll try super hard to get my grades back up for the next test. A fake smile along with the lie. I didn't like the way I was living. I wanted out. I wanted to crawl into bed and never come out again. I didn't want to face the world, and least of all, my former classmates. It was lunch, and I was dreading it. Not only did I hate the sight of food, but the sight of Uraraka and Ida was worse. They smiled at me and talked to me, but it was getting on my nerves. I dragged myself to lunch and sat by my friends. Things started off normal, but it wasn't long before they noticed that I wasn't touching my food. Is everything alright, Deku? Uraraka asked, seeming genuinely concerned. Have you been eating, Midoriya? Ida asked. You're looking a bit sick. I'm fine, I said, even though it was painfully obvious that something was wrong. My friends stopped eating and looked at me, as if inspecting a science experiment. It made me very uncomfortable. It was almost like they were reading my thoughts and knew how much I wasn't fine. I stood up suddenly to leave. Deku, I need some air. I'll catch up with you guys later. I rushed out of the lunchroom to the doors that lead to outside. I was breathing heavily, but I kept running. I wasn't watching where I was going until I smacked into something. I looked up to see that something had been Todoroki. Sorry, Todoroki-kun. A wide smile spread across his lips. Now that wasn't like him at all. I suddenly froze, knowing something was definitely wrong here. I backed up slowly, but he grabbed me by the tie. Hello, little Izuku. My eyes widened. The only one who ever called me that was. Did you miss me? Toga said with a smile, keeping her Todoroki guise on since other students were around us. How did you do? My heart was racing a million miles a minute. She held up Todoroki's student ID badge. We figured out how to sneak into U.A when we used this trick with you. We planted your old ID in your costume so the alarms wouldn't go off. But how did you get? A wicked smile stretched across the mimic's face. Little Shudo had to miss class today. He had a nasty head cold. I was starting to hyperventilate. I thought I was safe. I thought that the business with the villains was all behind me. Now here was one of my tormentors, coming to either kill me or take me back. Let go! I'm useless to you now. Useless? Toga asked. Then, a smile ripped across Todoroki's face. Never, little Izuku. You're more valuable to us than ever before. You're going to be our little spy. You're going to help us take down the new generation of heroes. And if you refuse, let's just say that we know where you live. We have access to where your classmates live. We know about All Might and his diminishing power. Her hand tightened on my tie. And we knew how to kill them all. I felt tears building up. Please don't make me. My voice was barely a whisper. I don't want. Smack. No one cares. All we care about is how you do your job. If you want proof, we'll come to your house tonight, and we'll be wanting some information. She dropped me, and I fell backwards, quickly crawling away from her, as fast as I could. She grabbed a fistful of my hair. And no excuses. I sat in shock for a few seconds before everything clicked. That was Toga. She morphed herself into Todoroki, which means she got his blood somehow. The League of Villains wanted me back, this time, as a spy. I had just been dropped into hell once again. Once I was done processing the information, I screamed. I didn't want to go back. They would hurt me. They would hurt my friends. They knew where I lived. My mom, they could kill my mom. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on a bed in the U.A nurse's office. Uraraka and Ida were above me. Is he waking up, Deku? Can you hear me? I nodded slightly, unsure of what had happened. Then it hit me. I shot up in bed. Toga, Midoriya, calm down. Ida was forcing me to lie down. We found you having a panic attack. Was it triggered by a memory? It was. I suddenly stopped. They knew where my mom lived. Just a daydream. I'm okay now. Have you been getting enough sleep, Deku? Uraraka asked, concern obvious in her eyes. I shook my head. My nightmares have been keeping me up, sometimes. I hoped that last bit would make it seem like less of a deal. If they're really that bad, you should have come and talked to me. The recovery girl shoved a small bag of pills into my hands. These will help you fall into a deeper, and hopefully dreamless sleep. If you're having any other problems, feel free to talk to me. I nodded, and thanked her before leaving school for the day. Uraraka walked me home, since Ida was busy with family stuff that night. I guess I'll see you around, Deku, Uraraka said with a smile. I returned it. Thanks. You too. Are you sure you're really okay? I mean, a panic attack is kinda a big deal, isn't it? I shrugged. I've had worse. We stood in an awkward silence before I waved to her. Well, thanks a bunch, Uraraka. I'll see you at school. Yup. Later, Deku. I knew my lie was becoming apparent, and that it would soon shatter one day so that everyone could see my real emotions. I wasn't ready for that just yet. I wanted to stay in this shell where everything was kept secret, and no one would see the truth. The lie I was living was getting old, very fast. I sat anxiously in bed. Toga said that they would come and make me spill information. That would make me a traitor. They wanted to break me. If I refused, they wouldn't only hurt me, but my family and friends as well. I knew the heroes would stop them eventually, but how many innocents would die before the massacre was over? There was a knock at my door, and I jumped. Izuku? It was just Mom. Did you take the medicine that recovery girl gave you? Yeah, Mom. Good. Do you need me to get you anything? When I explained to my mom that the pills were so that I wouldn't have nightmares, she went into overprotective mode. She looked disappointed when she was told I was still having nightmares. She thought it was her fault because she didn't hear me waking up in the middle of the night anymore. I told her that it wasn't her fault, and that they were getting less frequent and less vivid, although that was a straight-out lie to her face. I also lied when I said I took the pill. It was sitting on my side table. I was going to take it after the villains visited me. Toga could have just been trying to scare me, but I didn't want to get caught by the villains in my sleep. No thanks, Mom. Good night, Izuku. I heard her walk into her room, and saw the hallway light turn off. I breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't want Mom to get caught up in any of this. I sat deathly still for about 15 minutes after that before there was a knock on my window. The sudden noise made me jump. My heart was racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. I slowly turned to see Shigaraki waiting at the window. He pointed down, as if saying, "Open the window, you useless pawn." I swallowed my fear, and slowly got up from bed. I couldn't think clearly, and my body had gone on autopilot. I wanted to cry, but I would be hit if I did. With shaking hands, I slid up the window, and took a step back to let the villains in. There were 3 in total: Shigaraki, Toga, and Dabi. I felt a lump in my throat, but I wouldn't let the sob out. "I assume you heard all the details from Toga?" Shigaraki said. He wasn't loud, but his voice still made me shake, and my heart thumped loudly. I wanted out. I didn't want to be here. I managed to nod my head. I wasn't sure if they would let me talk or not. Dabi was here, and he seemed to hate it when I talked the most. I wasn't going to risk it. Cough it up, Midoriya. I already had the notebook in my hand. I wasn't ready to give them my most recent one, so I gave them a notebook full of more minor heroes. I would delay giving them my last one with all of my classmates for as long as possible. I didn't want to become the villain here. Shigaraki flipped through the notebook. "Not bad, but I know what you're planning. You won't be able to protect your classmates forever. We'll be back in a week, and if you don't give up the notebook, we're taking you back and killing everyone you care about." Wait, my breath caught in my throat. I couldn't talk back to them, but I was already halfway there. "I don't have information on all my classmates." "Well, you'd better be ready by next week. Or else." "Toga?" Toga drew a knife from her pocket and walked over to me. She slit my arm, then collected my blood in a test tube. I winced, but it was hardly the pain I was used to. "I think you understand what we need your blood for. With Toga's quirk, we could ruin your life forever." I gulped, knowing that they weren't bluffing. If I screwed this up, my life would be ruined. Much sooner than I thought, the villains left. I collapsed onto my bed and let myself cry. At school the next day, everyone was talking about Todoroki's disappearance. Most thought that he was just sick, but I knew he must have gotten hurt when Toga took his blood. She probably knocked him out so he wouldn't struggle. He should be back in a few days, but blows to the head can be pretty serious. I couldn't focus on my schoolwork for the entire day because of the visit from the League of Villains the night before. I hadn't gotten much sleep, and I had plenty of stress on my head. It was pretty obvious that Uraraka and Ida thought something was wrong with me since they kept asking me if I needed to go to see a recovering girl. "Midoriya, huh?" I hadn't even realized that I had been spacing out. "This is the 3rd time this period. Please pay attention." "Yes, sir. You look like you didn't sleep a wink last night." Uraraka was walking me to the bus station. Ida was busy with a meeting for class presidents, but Uraraka was, as usual, happy to go out of her way to make sure I wasn't lonely on my way home. I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, since it was nice having company, but it also made me feel like a burden, making her go out of the way for me like this. "Make sure you get plenty of sleep tonight." "Okay, and if you ever need someone to talk to, I'll always be willing." She beamed at me, and it made me want to smile too. "Okay, sure. I'll make sure to do that." "Thanks, Uraraka." "No problem, Deku." That night, I paced around my room, waiting for the villains to show up. I just wanted to get this over with. I'd collected minimum data on a few of the weaker kids in general studies, and, though I knew what Shigaraki wanted, I wasn't going to hand him my precious notebook with information on my former classmates. I heard the window slide open, and my heart started to pound. "He's gonna hurt me! He's gonna hurt me!" "Well?" Shigaraki's voice was quiet, but it made me shake like a leaf. I was already holding the notebook in my hand. I was shaking so bad that I almost dropped it a couple times before handing it to the villain. Slowly, Shigaraki opened the notebook. A minute passed, then another. Then one more. "What is this crap?" I winced. He used his quirk to turn the notebook to do it before grabbing me by the front of the shirt. "Did you really think I would take that? There's nothing helpful there. I need information on the little hero eggs, not the useless general studies brats." "I'm sorry." I felt tears building up in my eyes. He was gonna beat the crap out of me. A hand wound its way in my hair and jerked up. I yelped in pain. "Shut up. Wouldn't want to wake Mama up, do we?" I cried silently in fear as I looked up at the glare that Shigaraki gave me. "What are your orders?" "To get information on the kids from Class 1A. "Good. Now you'd better give me that information tomorrow, or your mom might have a little accident." I felt like crying. It was one thing to hurt me, but to threaten an innocent, especially my mom who wouldn't give in. I nodded slowly. "Okay, good answer." Just as soon as he had come, Shigaraki was gone. I knew that if I did this, I would be betraying the heroes that I'd looked up to for my whole life, but I didn't know how to get out of this one. There was always All Might, but if Shigaraki found out that I told someone, the people I loved would be in danger. I curled up onto my bed and started to sob. I stared at the stupid notebook in my hands. I wanted to throw it off a cliff because it meant that I didn't have to hand it over to the Villain Alliance. Who knows what they could do with such valuable information? Midoriya. Someone was tapping on my shoulder. I hadn't learned the names of all my classmates, but the one who sat behind me was a girl named Kira, or at least that's what everyone called her. She's from America, and is here at U.A. as an exchange student. Her quirk was that she could shape-shift, not into animals, only changing her appearance. A cool quirk, but not useful for a hero. Huh, she pointed past me. The student in front of me was trying to hand papers back. I flushed before taking them, and passing them back. I hadn't been able to focus on school all day. I kept dropping things, and messing up words, and jumping at everything. Eventually, Ectoplasm asked me if my behavior had to do with any PTSD that I was having since I was kidnapped. I lied, and told him that was probably it, then asked if I could go outside for some fresh air. I wondered if I could handle waiting until Shigaraki came to retrieve what he wanted. This whole situation was stressing me out. Going outside helped me sort my thoughts out a little, and helped to calm me to the point where I wasn't on the verge of a panic attack. Right before I was about to go back inside, a hand grabbed me by the shoulder. "You're Midoriya, right?" "Yes." The boy was at least a head taller than me, and had to be an upperclassman. He had two friends backing him up, both showing off their quirks, hardening, and one had falcon wings on his back. The person who had grabbed me didn't look like anything special, but he had to have some sort of quirk. "Huh, so you're the villain everyone's been talking about." That comment caught me off guard. "What?" "The kid who broke in, and almost killed a student. That's you, right? I hear that you're also quirkless. Who told you that?" "It's strange, though," the boy continued. Through our conversation, he was slowly backing me into a wall. "I hear you used to be a part of the hero course. Is that right?" "It's complicated. I'm not quirkless." I recognized that name probably from the sports festival. He slammed his hand against the wall, trapping me in a corner I hadn't even realized that I'd gotten myself into. The festival where the second and third years should have been the center of attention. My heart was pounding. Nobody had bullied me since I came to UA, so this had caught me off guard. "I'm sorry." I was cut off when the kid grabbed my neck. "Shut up, Class 1A twerp. Do you need a lesson from your senpai about staying where you belong? Just let me get back to class." I winced, as he used his quirk to scare me. "You see this? This is why I'm gonna be a hero. My quirk strength." He easily punched a hole into the wall behind me. "You're in general studies, right? Stop acting all high and mighty, and remember your place." I thought that was it, and he would leave me alone, but instead, he spotted the notebook in my hand. Without hesitating, he grabbed the notebook from my hands. "Hey, that's mine. Give it back." I tried to jump, and grabbed my notebook which he was holding over my head in a teasing way, but he shoved me to the ground easily. What do we have here? Looks to me like you're either a total creep." He smiled, and raised an eyebrow. "Or some kind of villain." "No, it's just a hobby. Give me my notebook back." I jumped for the notebook, but he threw it to the boy with hardening abilities, who then threw it to the boy with wings. I tried to get it back from the Falcon Boy, but he flew high above my head. Before my eyes, he began to rip the notebook apart before my eyes. "Stop that! That notebook would save my mom. It would keep her safe. They couldn't do this to me. I needed that notebook." Without thinking, I used one for all. I broke both of my legs while jumping into the air, and, although I didn't break my arm hitting the kid, I knew that the punch still hurt. He hadn't been too far up, so the fall wasn't that bad, but it jarred my broken bones. "What the heck kind of quirk was that?" the winged guy asked, holding onto his cheek. I had knocked him out of the air, and made him drop my notebook. The punch was just enough to scare them all off, but now I was regretting my impulsive reaction. I was stranded outside of the school building with 2 broken legs, and a throbbing arm. I started to crawl my way towards my fallen notebook, but someone came, and picked it up. "I thought you weren't supposed to use your quirk anymore, Midoriya-kun." I looked up to see Todoroki, head wrapped in a bandage, and a healing black eye. "Todoroki-kun, I saw those guys harassing you. I would have helped out, but they had run off before I could get here." He walked over to me. "That looks pretty bad. I'll go get a recovery girl." He set down my notebook for me before running off to get help. I looked down at my ruined notebook. Shigaraki wasn't going to be happy with this. Why couldn't my life go right at least once? It was about 5 or so minutes until recovery girls' robots picked me up to take me to the medical wing. Todoroki was there too, saying he would be a witness that I was using my quirk for self-defense, and not for anything else. Either way, I knew recovery girl was not going to be happy with this. At least I broke my legs, and not my arms this time. When the door opened, the recovery girl was talking to someone. I was still in a lot of pain, so I didn't realize who the man was right away, but when I finally focused my eyes on him, my brain flashed with horrible memories. "Oh, Midoriya. I'm so sorry, the doctor from my time with the League of Villains said, wringing his hands together. My presence probably upsets you. I'll get going. Don't leave, the recovery girl said. I want this boy to get over what happened, and I want you to stop feeling guilty for what you did. I'll patch up Midoriya, and you explain to the boy that you're sorry. But before that, recovery girl glared at me. Why are your legs broken? I winced, and was about to speak up when Todoroki beat me to it. Some second or third years were harassing him. He did it out of defense. The recovery girl still shook her head. Well, it doesn't matter now. You'd better stay here the rest of the school days so you can feel better. I nodded, then turned my attention to Todoroki. You can get to class if you want. I'm fine. Todoroki just nodded before walking off. After the recovery girl had fixed me up, she left me with the doctor, saying that she had business to do. The two of us sat in awkward silence for a few minutes before the doctor spoke up. Look, it's obvious that I'm making you uncomfortable by being here. What were you and recovery girl talking about? We were talking about your condition. Condition? Did he mean my quirk? She wanted to know what the villains did to you, mentally and physical. That's it, I nodded. Oh, was that it? Couldn't you have just sent an email or called her? I also wanted to make sure you were okay, Izuku. I shivered. Why did he use my given name? I slowly looked up, as the mask of the doctor faded, and Toga appeared. She had used the same trick on me, but it still surprised me. Could I trust no one? Hello, little Izuku. Looks like you're in pain right now. I have just the thing for that. She took a syringe out of her pocket. I almost started hyperventilating at the sight of it. This'll just put you to sleep for a bit. Okay. Shigaraki wants to talk to you. I couldn't struggle before she plunges the needle in between my fingers, somewhere the rectory girl wouldn't notice, and I almost immediately started to drift off. I saw Toga change back to the doctor before saying, Recovery girl. The poor boy was so tired, drifted right off then. I was out like a light. I woke up with my head pounding. Where was I? It was so dark and damp. Images of my room from the League flashes through my mind. With a shaking hand, I felt what was under me. It was a pile of scratchy blankets. My heart stopped. It couldn't be. I tried to stand up, but my head hit the low ceiling. I desperately reached out my hands, but my arms barely could stretch out in this tiny room. Let me out! I screamed, trying to open my door, which had never been locked before now. Bring me back to U.A right now! I was crying because I was so scared. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to go home. I didn't want the villains to brainwash MS again. Out of panic, I screamed. I was cut off by a string of swear words and a shut up from Twice, a villain which hadn't done much to me in the past, but I was familiar with nonetheless. The door opened, and there was a man wearing a mask. He had a severe case of split personality disorder, and was difficult to have a conversation with. Get out here, kid. Shigaraki wants to welcome you back. It wouldn't have been hard to get away from Twice. If you take his mask off, he breaks down. However, I knew this base was different from the last one, but very similar. I didn't know where the exit was. It would have been smarter to have Twice blindfold me, as he led me through the hallway, although the turns weren't too complicated. Right, left, left. The base probably wasn't too big, which would most likely make finding the exit easier. Twice took me into a room where the other members of the Villain Alliance were waiting for me. Even with the hand covering his face, I could tell that Shigaraki was annoyed. Twice took me right in front of Shigaraki. There was an awkward silence before, without warning, Shigaraki's hand came and smacked me across the face with enough force to knock me off my feet. Think you could get away that easily, Izuku? Did you think that the school could protect you? Tears slipped out of my eyes before I could stop them. I was scared, and the hit was hard enough to bruise. Do you need me to teach you a lesson? He grabbed me by the front of my shirt. I shook my head, but he hit me again, on the other side of my face this time. I could feel it again. A few weeks without constant pain, and I could feel everything again. It hurt, and I didn't like it. Because of you, we had to move. Because of you, we have to stay in hiding. Do you know where we are? I shook my head. He tightened his grip on my shirt. We've moved from city to find a place to lie low, and we finally found one in Osaka. My eyes widened. But that's miles away from. Shigaraki grabbed me by the throat. Yeah, and keeping my quiet all the way here was a challenge. So shut up, and do as I say, get it? I nodded, and he let me go. I couldn't help the sobs coming from my throat. I fell to my knees. Not again, not again, not again, not again, not again, not again. Take the brat downstairs, and hook him up to the machine. Leave him there until you've wiped his memory clean, or he passes out, whichever happens first. Twice grabbed me by the arm, and hauled me to my feet. Please don't, I don't want to. Shigaraki interrupted my sentence with a hard punch to the gut. It packed a blow that was enough to knock me off my feet, and into the nearest wall. Twice had the foresight to let me go when he saw Shigaraki coming. Shut up. No one here cares if you don't want to. Your quirk may be useless to us, but you're an expert marksman. We want to take advantage of that, and use you. Got it? We'll do whatever we need to do if it means we get to use you. You're not gonna turn on us this time. Twice grabbed me again before I could say anything stupid again. You know, you should be more careful around him. Ah, who cares? The kid can do whatever he wants. But Shigaraki's so mean. Twice continued to argue with himself, but I turned him out. I had to escape, before I lost my memories again. Both sides of my face were bruised, and my stomach felt like it had been hit by a train, but I was still desperately looking for an exit. Before I saw anything obvious, I was being pulled downstairs. I tried to fight back, but Twice hit me over the head, so I stopped. I was afraid I would get a concussion with all these blows to the head. The basement was a big empty space with a single machine in the middle of the room. I knew it too well. I started to fight back again, but Twice put me in a headlock and dragged me towards the machine. I don't want to. Let go. What a pain. Twice slammed me into the chair and locked my arms in place. The machine started immediately. It hurt. I felt like my very life was being sucked out of me. All I could do was scream for help. All might. I was crying, and my throat was sore. Help me, it's happening again. My mind kept screaming at me, as I fought to stay awake against the pain I was feeling at the moment. I didn't want to give Shigaraki the satisfaction of seeing me crack under the pressure. The problem was, I could already feel myself forgetting things. I hadn't fully recovered all my memories after I was saved by All Might. Little things like my childhood, and names, but I could already feel things that I knew were important slipping away. I can't forget who I am. My brain latched onto a face. That's all I needed to remember. I just had to think of Uraraka. Then I wouldn't lose my mind. She had always been so nice to me, and supported my dream. I had to at least remember her. More things were slipping away. Uraraka. 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 U.A. All Might. Enemy. No. U.A. Uraraka. Yura, you are you? My eyes popped open. No, just give it up. I jumped. Dabi was standing next to me. The pain had stopped for the moment. It'll be easier if you stop trying to remember things. I shook my head. But she's my friend. I don't want to forget her. I think you just did, Dabi said. No, I didn't. Oh yeah? Dabi leaned down so he was face to face with me. What's her name? Yura. I struggled for a minute before I remembered at least one part. Ochako, calling a girl by her given name? How rude. He leaned over the machine and turned it on again. Best to forget her name altogether. Wait, no arg. The pain was worse this time. It almost instantly knocked me out. When I came to, I heard two people arguing. It's a delicate process. You can't go from 1 to 100 that fast. So what if he loses a few brain cells? Isn't that the point? You're going to make him brain dead if you go too fast. That's why it took so long last time. Idiot. Lil Izuku's awake. A different voice came, a female this time. 3 figures loomed above me. I shrunk away, but I was strapped down. There was no way to escape. What's your name? Izuku Midoriya? How old are you? 16? When's your birthday? I don't know. Who am I? Shigaraki Tamura. Where did you go to school? U.A. High? He still knows. Shigaraki turned to the man beside him. Turn on the machine again. Huh. Wait. Please don't. It hurts so much. Tamura, can I take him for a little bit? I want to ask him questions too. The girl smiled. She had blood in her teeth. And I want him to try what I cooked for him. I worked really hard on it. Not now, Toga. Shigaraki said in a gruff voice. But he looks so hungry. Not now. Shigaraki yelled. Besides, he would just puke up whatever you have him. He can eat after he's on our side. Dabi, turn it on. Please don't. I don't want it. It hurts. I was crying, but I didn't care. Anything to stop the pain. Deal with it. Then he flipped the switch, and I was back to being in a world of pain. I hadn't been unstrapped from the chair for 2 days. Toga would eat with me, though I was usually in too much pain to enjoy the food. She would ask me to try her new creations. I didn't want to know what she fed me, knowing her personality and quirk. I just ate, and told her it was good. It made her squeal, which would have weirded me out in any other situation, but I was in too much pain to care. I was half-conscious when Shigaraki was suddenly looming over me. Are you done resisting? I tried to talk back, but my tongue felt heavy, and I couldn't get the words around it. I simply shook my head, as much as I could manage. The next thing I knew, I felt a blunt hit to my stomach. It was Shigaraki's fist. I let a small grunt of pain escape my lips. My body was so battered, and it was all his fault. It'll stop. Remember, back before you ran away. Dabi beat me every day I managed to get out of my mouth. He only hit you because you deserved it. Shigaraki spat. You were a brat who needed to be taught discipline. We wouldn't do this if you weren't so stubborn, Izuku. The sound of my name from his lips made me shudder. Stop hurts. I won't stop until you either submit or die. Either one that comes first. Just kill me. I thought a hero never gives up. I whimpered. I'm no hero. My voice cracked. Tears were coming down my face. I'm just a quirkless loser. All Might really shouldn't have given you false hope. Shigaraki patted my shoulder. But I know how useless you are, and I still decided to take you in. I whimpered again. Captured me? Yes, but we got you away from the people who would just laugh at you. All Might replaced you. How long were you gone for? 3 months? That's way too soon to replace someone. We risked our necks to get a hold of you. We could have been caught and thrown in jail. Shigaraki tightened his grip on my shoulder, careful not to use all 5 of his fingers. What do you think you should say to that? Thank you? I asked quietly, barely above a whisper. What was that? Shigaraki asked, though I knew he heard those words. Thank you, I said with everything I could muster. The heroes might have thrown you away, but we at the League haven't. You're not useless to us. You're a good shot and, if need be, good bait for those heroes who wronged you. They won't kill you. I simply nodded. Will you stop hurting me if I join you? Shigaraki's words had gotten to me, and I was in too much pain to think clearly about my decision. If you join us, there's no backing out, got it? I nodded weakly. Just don't brainwash me, please. We won't have to this time. However, Ichi placed his hand on the straps holding me down. If you betray us, you know what'll happen to you. I nodded, shaking the dust that used to be my bonds off of me. I stood up, but my legs couldn't hold me up. I stumbled into the table where Shigaraki kept his torture weapons. I winced as I slit myself with one of the knives, but I didn't really feel the pain. What's a little more lost blood? Shigaraki called in Toga, and she brought me to the bar, where she took out a first aid kit. We lost our doctor, so you're gonna have to heal naturally this time. She seemed too excited. She took my arm, and without even cleaning the wound, put a band-aid over it. Toga, I'll take it from here, Kurojairi said from behind the bar counter. Toga pouted, but let the man take care of me properly this time. I'm glad you saw the reason, Midoriya. I'm sorry about the way you were treated. I didn't answer him. My throat was too dry. He just finished wrapping his arm when Twice came into the room. Mist, get me a drink. Oh, so you're alive, kid? Are you part of our group? I don't think you were tortured enough. It's good to have you. He held out his hand. I was hesitant to take it, but I mustered up the courage, and did so. Twice just smiled, and crushed my hand. Kurojairi placed a glass of water, and a plate of food in front of me. I chugged the water then scarfed down the food. It was way better than what Toga had given me. Soon after I had finished the meal, I saw it again way too soon. I puked it up on the bar floor, holding my stomach, as tears leaked out of my eyes. Even after my stomach had rejected the food, I was still left dry heaving. I think you ate too fast, Kurojairi said. You haven't had proper nutrients in a few days, so that meal might have been a little too heavy. He began to wipe up the mess. I'll give you something your stomach can handle. I nodded, and wiped the puke off my chin. I didn't feel like eating anymore. As I sipped on a glass of water, Dabi and Shigaraki joined everyone else in the bar. I didn't realize it, but when they walked into the room, a shiver went down my spine. I knew I'd never be comfortable with them since they'd put me through so much pain. Dabi came over to me, and I tried to shrink. My eyes went to the floor, unable to look him in the eyes. So, you finally cracked. I winced, and a sob escaped my lips. I didn't know why I was crying. Tears leaked out of my eyes. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was because I realized what I had agreed to. I wanted to be dead. Death was better than being a villain. My one and only dream had been crushed out of me. If only I'd been as strong as All Might. If only I had learned to control my powers. Back off, Dabi, Shigaraki said. Don't hurt him unless you have to. We don't want him running back to the heroes. The heroes who give false hope. The liars who tell people everything will be okay when it's obvious that death is imminent. Shigaraki ran a hand through my hair. But we don't lie. No false hope. We know that Izuku here might have been an enemy in the past, but let's put it behind us. Let's give the quirkless boy, who everyone else threw aside, a purpose. I was getting used to my new daily schedule. Wake up, get ready, eat breakfast, go to target practice with Dabi, eat lunch, hand-to-hand combat training with Toga, break, survival training with Shigaraki, supper, learning essential math, and Japanese from Kurojairi, and finally bed. Twice would help me improve some other training aspects like how to fight with weapons other than a gun and knife. The training was exhausting, and the hours were long, but I had to be better. Since I didn't have a quirk anymore, I was going to have to rely solely on my skills. Every day I would see improvement, getting 3 bullseyes instead of 2, being able to knock Toga off balance, not getting hit by Shigaraki during survival training once. It was slow, But with my time at UA under my belt, no matter how short it was, I wasn't too bad with this training. I got Saturdays and Wednesdays off to rest, both mentally and physically. Kurojairi brought me books to read, and gave me some of the old games that Shigaraki had finished on old-school handheld devices. This kept my mind off things and, more importantly, out of the Lee's way. Toga still tried to flirt with me, but I had learned to ignore it. I just wasn't interested in her that way. I would, however, accept when she offered to eat with me. I got lonely easily, and I felt that if I talked to Toga, we would build as a team. I still had a fuzzy feeling at the back of my head, like what I was doing was wrong. I didn't want to be here, but I felt like the villains were teaching me better than the heroes ever had. Eventually, the bad feeling went away. I was still terrified of Dabi. Someone else, usually Toga or Kurojairi, would sit through our training session, just in case he tried to beat me without reason. The first time he went to hit me, I practically had a panic attack. Shigaraki had the same effect since he had been the one to torture me the worst, but since most of it was a blur, I didn't freak out so much. Dabi's torture had left marks, both physical and mental. My arms are horribly scarred from the multiple fractures from training, and even some from Dabi himself. He had pushed me close to paralysis, several times, and had been the one who made me scared to talk whenever he entered the room. Eyes up, Dabi snapped. I willed myself to look up to see the targets. I had a gun in my hand. Slowly, I lifted my arm. My confidence was shrinking under Dabi's glare. I took a few deep breaths, then steadied my arm. Left, right, center. Bang! 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 The noise echoed in my ears. I looked to see that each target had been hit dead center. Before I could smile, Dabi snapped. Behind you. Again, I spun, and fired 3 more bullets. Bang! 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 Dead center. I guess we'll have to start with moving targets tomorrow. I'll let you off early today. I bowed to him, like he told me to, and left for my room. It was still around an hour to lunch, so I decided to take a nap. I guess that wasn't such a good idea. Usually, during the night, I was too tired to dream. The constant training sapped my energy, and I was in a dreamless sleep before my head hit the pillow. But this time, it was different. I was standing in an alleyway with my hero suit on. I looked down at my getup. What a fanba, I muttered. Out of curiosity, I decided to charge up one for all. It worked. I went towards the wall, and decided to see if I could control the power in my dream. With all the force I could muster, I punched the wall. Although I did severe damage to the alleyway, I looked down to see my arm in one piece. It made me smile. Finally, suddenly, there was a loud bang. It came from behind me. I spun around to see the source. Before I could, there was a pain in my side. I looked down to see blood staining my costume red. I stumbled back, and fell on my butt. The figure with the gun was getting closer. I couldn't make them out, since they were silhouetted by the setting sun, and the loss of blood was making me dizzy. The person finally came close enough so I could name out who it was. It was someone who I knew. My mind searched for her name. She loaded the gun, and walked to me, pressing it against my forehead. Right before she pulled the trigger, a name popped into my head. Uraraka. The gun went off, but I didn't feel any pain. I opened my eyes, and I was the one holding the gun. I looked down at Uraraka. Her blood and brains were splattered over the ruined wall, and there was a distinct bullet wound in her side. I looked down. I wasn't wearing my hero's suit anymore, and there was no more blood. Instead, I was wearing the suit the villains had made me. There were a few cries from behind me. I looked over my shoulder to see the Class 1A. They looked horrified. I don't know why I did it, but I simply gave them a sickly smile. Oopsies, I jolted awake. I could feel the sweat cooling. It felt real. I looked down at my arm. It was still fine, but what if I had accidentally used one for all in my sleep? I could paralyze myself, and Uraraka, I wouldn't actually kill her. Right, I wouldn't kill anyone I knew. I don't think I could live with myself if I did. The horrified looks from my classmates, and the blood was ingrained in my brain. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything. Kurojairi eventually cut our lesson short so I could tell him what was wrong. I explained my dream, and he simply nodded. You're going to have to prepare to kill whoever we need you to kill, Izuku. I shivered. Oh, okay. Even though the heroes had never really believed in me, even though society had tossed me aside to fend for myself, even though All Might had given me a power only to hurt me, I didn't know if I could kill them. Not my friends. But were they my friends? No one stopped me from leaving Class 1A. I bet no one even cared that I was stuck in Class 1C. Everyone probably forgot about me by now. I'm the one who won't let it go. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it, Izuku? I froze. Sorry. I'm okay. Maybe you should get some rest. No way. I bit my lip. I didn't mean to snap at him. I mean, was the nightmare really so bad that you can't sleep? I shrugged. I don't know. I haven't had a dream since I came here, but now, if you're having trouble with nightmares, I can give you something tonight. I nodded. That'd be nice. After weeks of training, it was time that the villains were launching an attack. It was going to be a simple job, a kidnapping. I wasn't sure why they were capturing someone, but it wasn't my place to know. My job was to stay back with Kurojairi to provide vital information in case a hero showed up. Shigaraki and the rest of the villains were dropped off where I assumed the operation would take place, while Kurojairi took me to the top of a building where I could still see what was going on. Keep your eyes open, Kurojairi said. Tamura would not be happy if you failed your first mission. I nodded and took the binoculars out of my pocket. I switched on night vision and looked around for any signs of a hero. I really hoped that no one would show up. I didn't have a gun strapped to my hip just for decoration. After about 20 minutes, Shigaraki's voice came through a communicator in my ear. We've got him. Come and get us. I don't know what I was expecting. Something exciting maybe? I should have known it was small scale when Dabi said he didn't want to waste time on this. Everything seemed too fast and simple. Did crimes really go so unnoticed? Before I knew it, we were back home. When did I start calling this home? Right now, I guess. The man we captured looked terrified, and I made the mistake of looking him in the eyes. He looked terrified, and I felt horrible about being a part of this operation. Shigaraki began to drag him away before I could ask any questions. I turned to Kurojairi, but he simply said, "This doesn't concern you." I swallowed and nodded. I didn't think that I wanted to know. Life continued, as I began to accept my situation more and more each day. Life at the bar was a little intense and shady, but little by little, each of the villains began to accept me as part of their group. I didn't fully trust Dabi or Shigaraki yet, but I was starting to put more trust in everyone. Training got easier with each day, and I could go out more often. Eventually, Shigaraki let me go out whenever I wanted. I just had to make sure no one would recognize me. I usually hide my identity by wearing a hoodie and a face mask. I didn't do much while I was out, but just taking a walk was enough for me. It was September when I ran into trouble. I was out on a walk when I heard a familiar voice. "Get out of the way." I was tackled to the ground by someone smaller than me. I felt my hood slip off my head, and there was blood running down my face where it had scraped across the pavement. I looked up to see a villain with some sort of acid quirk causing havoc. He looked pissed, and was coming my way. "You have to get out of there," was a gasp. "Deku?" I froze, and looked at the person who had tackled me. I couldn't grasp her name. She was a friend from the USA. I had tried to put those days behind me. The girl's eyes were filled with tears. "You're alive?" My eyes widened. I quickly put my hood over my head and began to run. I heard a distant Uravity. "Get back here!" The voice was also familiar. "Froppy! It's Deku!" I ran as fast as I could. I didn't know where I was. I couldn't see the road to the bar. My hood kept falling off, and tears were leaking. I want to go home. I don't want to hear any more lies. I'm actually useful to the League. I'm just a liability to the heroes. When I suddenly became aware of my surroundings, I was in an unfamiliar alley. My breathing was heavy, and I was lost. I reached into my pocket where my phone was supposed to be. It must have fallen out of my pocket. It was a good thing Kurojairi had made sure I didn't have anything personal except his number on there. I took a deep breath and began to look around. I tried to remember where I was before the attack. Was I near the bar? Kurojairi always told me to stay close. How far did I run? I really didn't want to risk getting caught by Uravity. Is that what the girl had called her? The girl named Froppy? I stubbornly willed away my anxiety before taking a step out of the alley. If I hurried, I could get home before I was found. I looked around carefully before walking out of my hiding spot. Walk normally. Don't act suspicious. Eventually, I found a place I recognized. I mapped out the quickest route in my head to the bar, and started to run home. I just wanted to be off the streets. I got sloppy. My hopes got in front of what was ahead of me. My one thought of "gotta get home" dampened my vision. Before I knew it, I ran into the last person I wanted to see. Uravity. "Deku?" I gasped, and tried to step back. I ended up falling on my butt. I was shaking. Get away from me, Deku? What's wrong?" She tried to put a hand on my shoulder. "Get away." I could feel myself crying, but I didn't know why. This hero shouldn't scare me so much. She wasn't even a pro yet. I could see Froppy, and the pros she was working with behind her. "Deku, it's me. It's Uraraka." I shook my head. I didn't want to know that. Go away. We need to get you home." "Yoremo, shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to remember." "You'll lie. Heroes always lie." I started to sob. I could hardly get the words out. False hopes, sweet nothings. We're going to have to take him by force, the pro-hero said. I didn't care to remember who she was. I just heard the words, which made me cry harder. No! No, no, no! I backed up, but Froppy grabbed me around the waist with her tongue. I had to think fast. I grabbed the pocket knife from my pocket and slashed at the tongue. The frog girl yelped and dropped me. Uraraka smacked my arm before I fell, which activated her anti-gravity quirk. Now I was really panicking. I couldn't do much from up here. I debated throwing my knife, but it was the only weapon I had on me. Before the pro could react, I was engulfed in darkness. Kurogyri. I'd never been so relieved to be rescued. Before I could blink, I was sitting on the bar floor. The tears wouldn't stop coming down my face, and sobs escaped my throat. Kurohikuri. I felt sick. I was so surprised I didn't feel the pain right away. What was all that training for? I stared up at Kurogyri. He had never hit me before. I didn't even comprehend his words. Why did you panic? I don't. Izuku, we've been training you for several weeks now. What's the point if you fall apart at the slightest sign of trouble? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it was Uraraka. It caught me off guard. I don't care who it was. You need to cut away unnecessary memories and feelings. Yes, sir. It won't happen again. I wiped the tears out of my eyes. We also need to get your anxiety under control. If it comes to pills, so be it, but that's a last resort. We need to be fully aware and reliable. Got it? I swallowed and nodded. Kurogyri helped me up and sat me at the bar counter. He made me eat a light supper and cleaned up the scrape on my face. Okay, now go get some rest. Yes, sir. I began to walk to my room, then stopped. How did you know I was in trouble? I'm sorry, Izuku, but you need to be more reliable if you want our eyes off of you. That was proven today. Yes, sir. Good night. Gravity, 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 Urara. No! I don't know her. Froppy, Froppy. No, no, and oh. I'd spent all this time with the League trying to forget my past, and I almost succeeded. Shigaraki said that I had to leave my past behind, and to become a new person. And I did. I tried really hard to forget. Why? Stupid Uraraka. I froze. I said her name. I remembered. Crap, 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 no way. No way. Please let me forget. Please let me forget. Let me forget everything. My mom just let me forget that I'm becoming a villain. I froze. I never said the words out loud, but now, the truth was right in front of me. Right from my own mouth. Why can't I just have my voice cracked and be a hero? It was a simple request, really. I'd never once asked anyone for anything else. It was the one thing I wanted in my life. I only wanted to save people. There were countless days where that thought was the only thing that kept me going. When I become a hero, if I get a quirk, if I get stronger. I curled myself into a ball in my bed, pulling at my hair as I rocked back and forth. Gotta forget, gotta forget. Uraraka's face was burned into my memories. I could hear her saying Deku over and over again in my mind. You like her? Shut up. Me in junior high standing on the roof, wondered how much it would hurt if I fell. Or if I would die on impact if I'm not like that, I mumbled. Shiraki, my eyes popped open. There was only one way to forget. Shigaraki, I stumbled towards the door. I had to do this. I didn't care what I had to go through. Shigaraki, I ran down to the bar. Shigaraki was always up late drinking. He told me it helped him get to sleep. I burst into the room. I could feel tears streaming down my face, but I didn't care. Shigaraki was sitting in front of a TV screen that said audio only. A man's voice was coming through. Everything froze when I entered. Shiga, I didn't finish. The man grabbed me by the shirt, choking me. Little brat. This is a private meeting. No pawns allowed, but it was hard to get the words out. Get out of my face, Tamura. Shigaraki froze when the man from the TV spoke up. Sensei, let the boy talk to you. I'll tell you the plans later. Yes, Sensei. I was surprised to hear how easily Shigaraki listened to the man. I was guessing that he was the boss of the league. The TV turned off, and Shigaraki turned to give me his attention. Well, I tried so hard to forget. I ran into Uraraka today, and I've started to have doubts about being here and working with you. What was that, you brat? Wait. I'm not going to leave. I just want to clear my mind of all this crap. I want you to brainwash me. Kurogyri was against the plan, but everyone else was on board with it. Dabi, and twice seemed a little too exciting in my opinion. You do know that you'll be in pain, right? Shigaraki was attaching wires to me as we spoke. We could find you therapy or, no way. I'm getting over this the only way I know how to. By running away. Izuku, these memories are the center of who you are. Kurogyri sounded worried. If you erase them, I don't know what'll be left. Great. I'd love to restart. I gritted my teeth as Shigaraki injected me with pain-numbing medicine. Izuku, let the brat do what he wants. Twice cut Kurogyri off. I honestly think this is a good lesson for him. Let him feel the pain. If you ever regret your decision, I'll pull the plug, and you'll just have to deal with your trauma, okay Izuku? Kurogiri was back to worrying about me. He somehow reminded me of my mom. Don't think about her. She'd be really disappointed in you. Just do it, I said through gritted teeth. Without warning, the machine wired to life. The initial pain made me scream. I heard Kurogiri call my name in the back of my head, but I shook my head. Leave it, I gave in. I tried to not resist the pain. It'll help, it has to help. The machine kept going for days, only stopping when Kurogiri thought that Izuku was in too much pain. He would stop the process, but Izuku would glare at him. Don't stop now. His voice would be hoarse from all the screaming, but he refused to give up halfway. Kurogiri would regretfully turn the machine back on, and the screaming began once again. Eventually it stopped, but only because Izuku lost his voice and had passed out. Kurogiri took this time to feed Izuku and tend to any wounds he had acquired while struggling to get out of the bonds that kept him down. He made sure to do this fast since he didn't know when Izuku would wake up next. It went on for 4 days. It was a long, drawn-out process. No matter how much Izuku claimed he didn't want to remember who he was, there was still a small part of him, deep down, that couldn't bring himself to let it go. After seemingly endless torture, the machine finally turned off for good. Izuku opened his eyes and jumped. "Who are you?" he asked in a raspy voice. He winced and looked down. "Wait, who am I?" "Izuku Midoriya. We are the League of Villains, and you're one of us," Shigaraki said. "Don't you remember us?" Without warning, Izuku let out a laugh. It was eerie, and out of place with the boy. He hadn't laughed in so long. "Sorry, League of Villains?" He laughed harder. "What a stupid name, Izuku. Why is my head hurt? I can't feel my hands. Why am I trapped here? Am I your captive?" He laughed again. "You guys enjoy torturing a little." He looked down at his shirt. "Boys, Izuku, you're part of our team." Kurogiri was put off by the way Izuku was behaving. It was nothing like he was before. He thought something like this might happen. His past is what made him who he was, but now with it gone, he was like a little kid again. He had no filter, and kept saying things very bluntly. Kurogiri started to undo the straps of the machine. "Whoa, dude. What are you doing? Letting you go? Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure you weren't gonna hurt me again." "Izuku, we did that because you wanted it." Shigaraki kicked me. "Don't remind him of the past. He might remember again, and this whole thing will restart." Kurogiri got Izuku's bonds off, and helped him stand. The boy wavered slightly, most likely starving despite Kurogiri's attempts to feed him. He was pale, and looked thinner than he had been before. Izuku leaned heavily on Kurogiri for support, as he brought him upstairs. "We'll have you eat something, and then you should take a shower." "How do I take a shower?" Kurogiri gave Izuku a concerned look. "Izuku, do you remember anything?" "Yeah, but nothing you're telling me." "I remember how to talk, don't I?" "What else?" Izuku thought about it for a second. How to use a gun." "Algebra?" "How babies are made." "Okay, so those last two aren't extremely useful, but at least you remember how to shoot." They had made it to the bar. Kurogiri set Izuku down at the counter. He had a thought. He picked up a wine bottle. "Can you read this?" Izuku stared at the bottle blankly. "I can read a few words, but most of it is gibberish." Kurogiri hummed, and got to work making some broth. He assumed Izuku wouldn't be able to keep most food down right now. "Tell me if you remember anything else." Izuku was swinging his legs, and humming tunelessly. He was acting a lot younger than he was. Before he had lost his memories, he'd been fairly mature for his age. Now, he wasn't even as mature as a junior high. "Are you my dad?" Kurogiri wasn't ready for that question. No. "Then who are you?" That was a good question. Kurogiri hadn't really thought about what he was to the boy. "I'm your sensei." It wasn't a lie, since Kurogiri had taught him basic Japanese and math until he had been caught up mentally to that of a third year. "Sensei? I don't think that's right." "Who's my dad then?" "We don't know about Izuku." "Oh. Okay." He accepted it so easily. Kurogiri didn't think that he had the mental capability at the moment to understand what he was saying. This kid was going to be a lot more difficult to deal with than before. "Are you gonna give that to me, or will I just have to pry it from your cold, dead hands?" Kurogiri looked back. He had finished the broth, but he had been caught up in thinking. Izuku's face had changed. He looked more sinister, and that seemingly offhand comment was most likely a threat. Something had changed in Izuku's voice. Kurogiri handed the boy the broth, and Izuku drank it straight from the bowl, wincing when it burned him. "Careful," Izuku glared at him. "Whatever." He downed the rest of the soup, and stood up. "I'm gonna go find a shower, and learn how to use it." He wandered off before Kurogiri could stop him. He hoped the boy wouldn't get too lost in the hideout. After he left, Tamura came in. "Is he okay?" Kurogiri shrugged. Mentally, he's unstable. He's missing vital things in his memory. It's also likely he doesn't have a set-in-stone personality. His maturity is gone, and he seems to have trouble thinking straight. Yeah. At least he didn't lose it completely though. He would have been useless then. Shigaraki tapped his fingers on the counter. The real question is, can we still trust him? I'm not sure. Kurojairi poured Tamura a cocktail. Hopefully this wasn't a mistake. Yeah. Sensei's been telling me that the kid could be the key to bringing down All Might. Kurojairi nodded. I know. I guess we'll just have to teach him the things he doesn't know anymore, and we'll go from there. This is too much backtracking for me. Have fun. Call me when he's a normal human again. Okay? Just then, there was a scream. It was Izuku. He went to see what it was, but Izuku was already running down the hallway, a towel around his waist. That burned, Kurojairi sighed. This was going to take a while to get used to. Izuku knew he was getting strange stares. He was obviously too young to work, but he was dressed in a suit, and was wandering the streets during school hours. Most shook their heads, and muttered dropout. Izuku didn't hear them. He was on his way to bash a few heads, and shoot a few kids. He wasn't sure what was driving him to kill, but it's what his brain wanted him to do. If you can't listen to your own brain, who can you listen to? All of Izuku's weapons were hidden so that a passing pedestrian wouldn't raise an alarm. Izuku didn't feel like wasting his bullets. As soon as Izuku made it to U.A, he realized that if he just waltzed in, he would be caught. He had lost his student ID sometime when working with the League. Izuku still had enough of his brain intact to know that running into a school full of heroes and hero eggs was a bad idea. He would get caught before he even made it to Class 1A. Instead of going straight for the eggs, he decided to wait for one of them to show up then ambush them. It would be hard since Izuku didn't have a quirk that was usable anymore, but he decided that a gun would work if used before the user could activate his or her quirk. Izuku hid in an alley where he knew some students passed by to get to the train station. If he could grab one without drawing attention to himself, this would all work out. It was his first mission by himself. He had left the League, and was now planning a murder. What would his friends think of him now? Despite the brainwashing, Izuku still remembered slivers of his past. When he was sane, he could even remember a name or two, but everyone he thought of would leave a bad taste in his mouth. The worst was his childhood bully. He decided that he would aim for Kaken today. Right when Izuku was beginning to die of boredom, students in gray uniforms with red ties began to flood the streets. Izuku had a plan to capture Kaken, but he was still a little worried about how much damage Kaken could do to him with his quirk. Although no one liked to admit it because of Kaken's personality, he could easily become one of the top heroes, maybe even achieve his dream of number 1 eventually. He was brilliant, the kind of brilliant that didn't need to study to get straight A's. His battle strategy was impressive, and if only he wasn't so antisocial and short-tempered, he could be a pro in no time. Izuku was beginning to doubt himself. That's how he knew his sanity was coming back. He had to capture and kill Kaken. He needed to prove it to himself. In all honesty, Izuku didn't feel anything towards his former tormentor. He thought he would feel a surge of vengeance towards him, but he felt nothing. He just wanted to kill something. In the distance, Izuku spotted a figure, and knew that there was no turning back. He hid behind a dumpster, and waited. Bakugo was trying to lose Kaminari, and Kirishima. They were trying to get him to go with them to an arcade or some crap. Bakugo wasn't in the mood for wasting his money on blowing up stuff on a monitor. Not when he could do that in real life, as easily as lifting his arm. Class had been rough today. They had fought the third-year prick again today. Baku hated to lose, and he hadn't fought Mirio before like the rest of the class. He had been way too easily overpowered. He made up his mind that he would train harder until he could beat his smug face into the ground. A glint from a nearby alleyway caught his eye. He glanced its way, but no one was there. He shrugged it off. Ka-chan. Bakugo froze. Only one person still called him by his cruddy childhood nickname. After Deku had disappeared for a second time, Bakugo had assumed that he had finally cracked and offended himself. However, after his body was never found, most of his classmates assumed he ran away. Bakugo liked that explanation better. He'd never admit it, but when Tokoyami had said he could have committed suicide, guilt stirred in Bakugo. His words from junior high had come back to haunt him, along with the look on Mississippi Midoriya's face when they finally announced Izuku as dead a month after his disappearance. Deku had been gone for 4 or 5 months by now. Uraraka and Ajri had told everyone about how they had seen him about 2 months after his disappearance, but he hadn't been the same. Also, he had been taken away by a familiar mist. He was either a prisoner or, the more likely idea, he was working for the villains. Now Bakugo heard his voice. He wanted to keep going, but his feet were already moving in the direction of the alley. He was ready for a fight. Bakugo went to where he thought he heard Deku call from. He was met with the wide, watery eyes of a boy in a suit. "Deku? Kakakin? I don't have much time. I've escaped from the villains. You've gotta help me. I can't walk, my ankle might be broken." He was breathing heavily, and he seemed to be hysterical. Bakugo leaned down and grabbed onto Deku's leg. Deku yelped and pulled away. Bakugo tried to go slower. He pulled up Deku's pant leg to look at the damage, but when he took a look, there was nothing wrong. He understood right away what was going on. He went to stand, going into a defensive stance, but a sudden pain erupted in his hand. He couldn't even cry out before he was slammed against the alley wall. He let out an explosion through his good hand. When the smoke cleared, and he was more aware of his surroundings, he saw the glint of a second knife. He ducked, protecting his other hand. He knew that the one that got stabbed would be useless in this fight. The knife had gone through, and it penetrated into the wall. Bakugo let off another explosion, reaching towards Deku. He had taken the full heat of 2 blasts by now, but he was still standing. He grabbed Bakugo by the wrist, and went to snap it in half. Bakugo kicked out, hitting the smaller boy in the abdomen. It was enough to knock him back a little. With Deku away, Bakugo grabbed the knife in his hand, then stopped. If he pulled it out, it might cause permanent damage, but he had to get it out of the wall. He began to force the knife out of the wall. Blood was flowing down his arm, and into a puddle below him. Every movement with the knife was agony, and Bakugo was surprised he could still think straight. Deku had recovered. He was ready to attack again. Bakugo hadn't gotten the knife free from the wall yet. He fired another blast. Relying on one hand was starting to hurt, not to mention fighting while losing this much blood. The blast was stronger than the last one, and it made Bakugo's hand throb painfully. Where the F*K was everyone? Too bad you walk alone, Kakin. Don't you know if you leave school later than everyone else, you should have a buddy system? A nasty villain might get you. Bakugo knew that smile was going to haunt him. Deku had never given anyone a look like this before. Not even the villains. What the F*K had happened to him? "I want to see more blood, Kakin. I want to see you bleed. Don't you know that even someone, as gifted as you, can die?" Bakugo drew out enough strength to cause another explosion. It ripped a cry from his throat, a cry of sheer pain. The smoke cleared, and another knife penetrated his already throbbing hand. He was panting in pain and exhaustion. The fight with the third years hadn't helped with his stamina. Deku was battered and bleeding, but he didn't seem to notice. He hummed tunelessly as he took out a gun. Bakugo's eyes widened. Deku was aiming to kill him. He didn't think that Deku had it in him to kill a soul. But here he was, pinned to the wall like a captured bug on display. A new wave of adrenaline pumped through him. He started to pull his hands free, not bothering to worry about the damage he was causing to himself. The pain was blinding, but he had to get free. He had to. Bakugo? It was Kirishima. Everything seemed to freeze. Kirishima was a lot slower at figuring out the situation than Bakugo had been. He looked from his friend, covered in blood, and pinned to the wall, to Midoriya, who was burned and bleeding, but a sick smile was on his face. Finally, Kirishima noticed the gun in the smaller boy's hands. He took too long to figure it all out. He felt a pain in his shoulder, and heard the gun go off. "Get out of here, you idiot!" That was Bakugo. His voice was laced with pain. Kirishima had already decided he wasn't going to leave his friend behind. He activated his quirk. "I was aiming for your heart." Midoriya was still smiling. "I guess I'll just have to wait until you exhaust yourself." Midoriya turned the gun towards Bakugo, already knowing what Kirishima would do. Kirishima threw himself in front of Bakugo. The bullet ricochets off his body, and into the wall by Midoriya's head. "Idiot," Bakugo thought. "Go get a hero." Bakugo went back to freeing his hands. He was trying to tear them from the wall, knives and all. It hurt like he *L. One of his hands was pinned above his head, and the other was just about level with his mouth. He leaned his head so that he could pull out the knife with his teeth, trying to ignore the blood that had gotten onto the hilt. Another gunshot. Bakugo knew that Kirishima could take a lot before his form shattered, but Deku seemed to be taking his own sweet time reloading the gun. That wasn't good for Kirishima either. Midoriya had fired another shot, and went to reload when Kirishima suddenly tackled him. He threw a few punches before Midoriya got him off, and shot him again. This time, there was blood. Kirishima winced in pain. His form was getting weaker with every second. Midoriya shot twice more, slowly chiseling at the hardened skin on Kirishima's body, waiting until it broke, and giving him the satisfaction of painting the alley blood red, as Kakin watched helplessly. Kirishima kicked out Midoriya's legs. It was weaker than it should have been, but it was enough to knock the boy off his feet. Kirishima scrambled to his feet, and kicked the gun out of Midoriya's hand. It skidded out of reach, and Kirishima grabbed his potential murderer by the neck. "Snap out of it, Midoriya! The villains are using you!" There was a sudden pain in his leg. He cried, and his grip on Midoriya's neck loosened. Izuku took the opportunity to kick Kirishima into the wall. His hardening ability failed him with his last kick, and Izuku decided to use the opportunity to use his second-to-last knife on him. "What a sad way to go," Izuku muttered, pressing a different gun that seemed to just appear in his hands to Kirishima's head. "I thought you were unbreakable, but you lost to a chunk of metal." "Midoriya, don't." "Oh, and I'm not working for the villains. My brain said kill all your friends, so that's what I'm gonna do. No hard feelings, okay?" He was grinning, but it sent a shiver up Kirishima's spine. If he could stall for a few more seconds, he could harden his body just a little bit. Just a few. Bang! Kirishima felt himself going down, but the pain of being shot wasn't there. He opened his eyes, and caught a glimpse of sandy blonde hair above him. Get AF*ING hero. Bakugo was bleeding everywhere. He had covered Kirishima in blood where he had shoved him away from the bullet, and his hands were still leaking the red liquid. Even worse, the bullet had grazed his temple. Kirishima knew head wounds bleed bad, even minor ones, but he couldn't stand his friend losing this much blood because he has a time limit. Kirishima got to his feet, and ran towards the U.A. He didn't get out of the alley. Another gunshot, then he was sprawled onto the ground, a bullet lodged into his leg. Bakugo tried to make an explosion, but his hands wouldn't let him. No spark. Everything hurt, but he couldn't let Kirishima die. He caught a glimpse of Kirishima's phone, and knew he had to stall, as he made the call. Bakugo decides to use his size against Deku. He rammed into the smaller boy, but was taken aback when he didn't fall. He got in a stance, and threw a punch. Bakugo blocked, but he wasn't expecting Deku to be trained in hand-to-hand combat. Then, Deku decided to play dirty. He smacked Kaken again, but then took out a canister. Kaken tried to grab it from him, but he had already released the tear gas. Bakugo tried hard not to breathe in any of it, but through his watering eyes, and the pain he was in, he didn't have the energy to hold his breath for so long. He took a gasping breath, and immediately regretted it. He began to cough, and hack on the gas. He was on his knees. Something was pressed to his shoulder. Bang! Bakugo! Kirishima screamed through his hacking. He had made contact with Mr. Aizawa, but the gunshot. He whipped around to see Bakugo clutching his shoulder, and hacking, tears streaming down his face. Kirishima didn't know how much blood someone could lose before they die, but he knew that Bakugo needed help, or else he didn't want to think about it. He went to stand, but the bullet in his leg stopped him. He had to find another way. He looked around, and spotted the gun he had kicked out of Midoriya's hands. He picked it up, prayed there was a bullet, then fired. It hit Izuku in his right arm, the one he was holding his gun with. The weapon clattered to the ground. Midoriya watched the blood flow down his arm. "I didn't know heroes used guns." He picked up the gun with his left hand. Kirishima tried to shoot him through the hand, but the gun was out of ammo. He watched as Izuku raised the gun in his direction, and his heart stopped. Bakugo had stopped coughing, but his energy was slowly draining along with his blood. He saw Deku raise the gun, then fire. He didn't have the energy to even open his mouth. He was expecting blood. He expected to see Kirishima's lifeless face looking back at him. Instead, he saw that Kirishima had actually used his head. He had hardened the skin protecting only his vitals. Bakugo let out a sigh of relief. The pros would be here. They would stop Deku, they would. Bang! Kirishima couldn't move fast enough. Bakugo wasn't thinking straight. Izuku had taken his chance. The bullet had gone straight into Bakugo's brain. Kirishima screamed. Izuku's senses were coming back to him when he looked down at his handiwork. There was blood pooling from Bakugo's head, and his eyes were wide open and glossy. Izuku felt the corners of his mouth curve upwards, as the alley was painted a deep crimson. Kirishima's screams were like music to his ears. He turned from the bloody sight of his old tormentor to the boy with a knife in one leg, and a bullet in the other, trying to drag himself towards his dead friend. Izuku sauntered over to him. Kirishima winced, and that made Izuku grin. "If you had let me shoot you, Kaken might have lived." He placed his foot gently on the knife embedded in Kirishima's leg. Kirishima was too focused on getting to his dead friend. Izuku frowned, and stepped down. Kirishima yelped, as the knife went deeper. "You should listen when people talk to you. Do you know how rude that is?" He stomped down on the knife, and twisted it into Kirishima's leg. He yelped, and cried, begging for Izuku to stop. And he did. He leaned down, and tore the knife out of Kirishima's leg, earning a cry of agony from the boy. Then he picked up the gun from the ground that Kirishima had shot him with. The pain had been forgotten. He slipped the rest of his weapons into their rightful places, not bothering to clean off the blood. Finally, he looked back to see Kirishima had made it to Kaken's body. He rolled his eyes, but said nothing. The heroes would be here soon, so he had to leave before he got captured. Finally, he began to turn his clothes inside out. He was covered in Kaken, and his own blood, and this would help to not draw as much attention to himself. His shirt had been made for this reason, and the rest of his suit was black so you couldn't see the blood, as well. He would try to avoid crowds. Well, he said when he was done, I would kill you too, but I think that would be an act of mercy by now. Have some nice nightmares. He sauntered off, leaving Kirishima alone, bleeding, and sobbing in a pool of his friend's blood. After the murder of Kaken went public, Izuku decided to lay low before targeting any more of his former classmates. He was slowly making a hit list, and making plans about how he would go about it. Izuku knew that the heroes would be looking for him. He knew that if he slipped up and fell into a trap, he would be taken to jail, or worse, an asylum. He had lost his mind, and he had killed someone, a student, to make it worse. If they caught him, what would they do to him? During the weeks he had to lay low, his sanity would come back, and he would feel an unexplainable pain in his chest. It hurt. Was it guilt? Kirishima's screams would echo in his dreams, and wake him up in a cold sweat. He hated that feeling. He wanted it to just go away. He didn't want his sanity anymore. If he suddenly regained sanity in a fight, that would be the end of him. He couldn't kill in this state. Izuku tried everything to get rid of the guilt. He rammed his head against the wall, half drowned himself in a river, threatened his feelings with a knife, but nothing worked. It was still there. I'm going soft, he muttered. I need to kill again. It had been a few weeks after Bakugo's murder, not nearly enough time, but Izuku was getting impatient. The next classmate he saw, he would kill them. He didn't care who it was. If he had the chance, he would kill them. Kirishima had most likely spread the word that the murderer was Izuku, so walking out into broad daylight wasn't an option now. He had to be careful, or he might end up in the nut house without the help of the League. Uraraka knew she wasn't supposed to leave U.A without a guard, but her parents were in town. She wanted to make sure that the two of them were safe. Deku might have found out about them, and she didn't want to hear about their deaths the same way she'd heard about Bakugo's. Bakugo's death had been painful for everyone. He had been a jerk, and nobody in class, besides Kirishima and Kaminari, had been especially nice to him. He was a bully and a jerk, but they didn't think he deserved to die such a horrible death, and at such a young age. Kirishima didn't want to talk about it at first, but after a few days he let it all spill out, sobbing at the memory. He'd watched as his friend was murdered in front of his eyes, and had been wounded pretty badly himself. Uraraka overheard something about permanent damage in his leg that got stabbed, and the one that got shot would take a while to heal. Not to mention his mental health. Something like this would take much longer to heal than a bullet wound. The internships had stopped, and nowhere was safe until they captured Deku or at least found out his motive. Students weren't allowed outside school grounds unless accompanied by a teacher or another pro-hero. Uraraka had decided to sneak out. She was sure that there was a reason for Deku to kill Bakugo. Had his bullying been worse than the class had thought? Uraraka was a friend. He wouldn't kill her, right? He didn't kill Kirishima, so killing Bakugo had to be a one-time thing. Right. She rounded the corner, and found herself alone. Why wasn't anyone here? She looked around, and saw a yellow ribbon wrapped around some cones. She went closer, and saw that it was police tape. Then, she saw an officer hunched over a body. Sir? Sir, what happened? I have my provisional hero license. Can I? She had gone under the tape, and walked towards the officer. She'd place a hand on his shoulder, but it was cold to the touch. She gasped, and fell backwards. So did the officer. There was a bullet wound in his abdomen, and blood covered his front. The eyes of the victim snapped open, and Uraraka recognized those big green eyes. Did I scare you, Uraraka? Deku grinned. Izuku had been Uraraka weaving her way through the streets. He thought, how stupid is she? Before preparing a plan, he killed a police officer, and stole a roll of police tape before setting everything up. Citizens would avoid the situation, but he knew Uraraka couldn't. She was a hero, and heroes didn't turn away from the law. It was on a street that he knew she had to go down to get to her house. It was also a less traveled one. Still, he would have to get her into an alley before people started to show up, and call a hero to help, and she fell right into his trap. What an idiot. Deku? The boy in front of her grinned. Well, if it isn't my old friend. He used the word, as if he were spitting out poison. Dare I say my old crush isn't as cute as ever? Did I surprise you? Uraraka was taken off guard, but tried not to let it show. Why did you kill Bakugo? Deku shrugged. My brain told me to. He grabbed Uraraka by the shoulders. Much like it's telling me to kill you too. Huh! Uraraka wasn't liking what she had gotten into. She had to use her quirk before it was too late. Bang! Uraraka yelped, more surprised than in pain at the moment. She glanced down, and saw a bullet hole in her hand, blood oozing out. While she was distracted, Izuku grabbed her, and shoved her into the nearest alley. Some people may call me a creep for doing this to a girl, But don't worry, I'll treat you just like I treated Kaken. He kicked her in the gut, sending her flying against the wall. Izuku took a knife out of a hidden pocket. First things first, let's get rid of that quirk. Izuku grabbed Uraraka's uninjured hand by the wrist and slammed it into the wall. She cried out in pain, but he wasn't done. Her wrist was so small, he couldn't help it. Izuku crushed the bones in his hand, earning a sob and a cry of pain from Uraraka. He then went to stab her through the pads on her fingers that she could use her quirk from, but she had used her hand with the bullet hole in it to use her power. Izuku was suddenly weightless, as he went up higher and higher. He was up a good 15 to 18 feet in the air when Uraraka released him. Gravity did its thing, and Izuku slammed into the ground. He had a broken nose, and he was bruised, but he picked himself back up. He pounded his fist into Uraraka's face, and when she toppled over, he sat on her abdomen, keeping his foot firmly on her wrists. Nice going. Should have killed me while you had the chance. He picked up his knife and stabbed through every one of Uraraka's fingers. Uraraka sobbed and tried to force Izuku off of her. The boy didn't budge. She wanted to scream, but her throat was being choked by her sobs. Her broken wrist throbbed under Izuku's foot, and she felt pain in her hands and where he had punched her. After Izuku had finished nullifying Uraraka's quirk, he got off of her. He was digging around in his pocket for a gun. He decided that stabbing her to death would have been a bit messy. While his back was turned, Uraraka was being pushed by pure adrenaline to fight back. She couldn't use her hands, but she still had her legs that were mostly uninjured. Izuku was caught off guard, as the kick knocked him into the wall. Before he could retaliate, Uraraka kicked him again. The fight looked awkward, but Uraraka was just trying to survive, and her kicks were doing the trick. That was, until Izuku grabbed her by the leg and knocked her off balance. He learned his lesson and pinned her down once again. He now had the gun in his hand. I expected you to go down easy. Now you broke my nose and blemished my perfect skin. He gave a crooked smile. Well, now I'm the one with a gun, and you're helpless. Any last words? Izuku pressed the gun to Uraraka's head. She was shivering. She should have fought harder. She should have used her quirk when she had the chance. She shouldn't have let her feelings get in the way. She still saw a glimmer of the only Izuku in those eyes. She wanted to believe that he could still be reached. Deku, bang! If you thought I wasn't going any further into the manga, you were wrong. Read at your own risk. Anime onlys. Blood pooled from Uraraka's head. Izuku watched, memorized, as the liquid painted everything it touched a deep crimson. His infatuation was cut off when he heard footsteps and shouts of panic. That's my cue. He slipped away and smirked. 2 hero eggs gone. He was starting to feel giddy. Then he froze. There was a lump in his throat. He was confused by this new emotion. He looked back at the dead girl, and the pain in his chest grew worse. It was a worse feeling than the guilt from killing Kaken. This feeling was burning him alive. His eyes blurred, and he realized that he was crying. What another cry. He had to get out of here before he was seen. He slipped out of the alley, and into the shadows, but the pain wouldn't go away. Uraraka's blood was splashed onto Izuku's shoes, and he stared at it. What the heck, brain? You told me to kill her, and now you want to cry over it? His heart was throbbing painfully, and the tears flowed. Stupid. Izuku had almost made it out without being seen when a hand was placed on his shoulder. He immediately jumped into a defensive position, tears still leaking out of his eyes. Izuku was met with a man he'd never seen before. He had brown hair and bloodshot eyes. A mask, similar to a plague doctor's, covered the bottom half of his face. It was obvious that he wasn't a hero or an ordinary citizen. Izuku concluded he must be a villain or vigilante. The last villains he felt had left a bad taste in his mouth, so he wasn't thrilled by the new face. Are you the new hero killer? Who the he asterisk else the hero killer? The man seemed confused. Stain? He took the world by storm with his ideals. You really never heard of him? Izuku shrugged. You could say I've been living under a rock. Everyone's been saying you were influenced by him, but I see that they were wrong. I didn't really have an opinion of the hero killer's methods myself, but I think that his method, and yours, is effective to say the least. Wait, who are you anyway? Izuku asked. Oh, the man's eyes crinkled slightly, as if he was smiling under the mask. My name is Overhaul, or more commonly known as Chisaki. I am the leader of the 8 precepts of death. Izuku was pretty sure that was supposed to be impressive, but instead he just stared at the man. What's that? Chisaki paused. You have been living under a rock, haven't you? Izuku simply shrugged. So you're a villain, right? Just saying, if you're not, I'll have to kill you. You were a partner with Shigaraki Tamura, correct? Izuku frowned at his unanswered question, but shrugged it off. I wouldn't exactly say partner, but sure. I was part of the Villain Alliance until they decided that I needed to go to the nut house. My brain's out of whack, but hey, Can't say that I didn't ask for it, right? I hear that you're quirkless. Is that true? Izuku shrugged. Technically, I've got the power of one for all, but I can't use it. When I do, I break all the bones in my body. Chisaki wasn't expecting that reply. One for all? This quirkless kid? He must be insane. The insanity was no issue for Chisaki. All he wanted was the help of this child. Come with me. I want to use you for some experiments concerning being quirkless. Also, I heard you have quite the aim with a gun. You could be very useful to us. Izuku hadn't heard the word experiments. No way. The villains tortured me enough, as it is. I don't want any more scars. My brain wants me to kill my classmates, and that's what I'm going to do. You've already killed 2 of your classmates, and put another one out of commission for a week or so. Those classmates had powerful quirks, but were easy enough to nullify. What about going against a classmate whose quirk doesn't have a set place to stab through to put them out of commission of a time limit to wait out? What are you getting at? Izuku crossed his arms. I feel like you're playing mind games with me. What I'm saying is if you help me with my serum, you can use it on your classmates. It will erase their quirks, and you will be able to fulfill whatever your heart desires without an issue. I guess if I had been able to erase Gravity-chan's quirk over there, my nose wouldn't be broken right now. I'm still not too sure about the experiment factor here. It'll be purely for scientific reasons, and we wouldn't try to purposely cause you any harm. Don't you want people to feel as helpless as you did before you overcame your quirklessness? I say to make the mighty plummet. Well, okay. But no permanent damage, okay? I've lost my mind already, so I don't want to lose an eye or something. Don't worry about that. I'll make sure you stay intact. Izuku knew that about stranger danger, but already having killed 2 people, 2 teens, as a matter of fact, and possibly causing permanent damage to a 3rd, he decided that following a fellow villain was better than getting captured by a hero. How twisted the world seemed to be on the other side. The end. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.